To begin. Thank you. Good morning. I call the meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents to order. Susan, would you please confirm we have a quorum?
Yes, Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. This morning, we will convene an executive session for review of assignments with Executive Director Sampson, with President Law and President Cruz Rivera. At approximately 1:30, the public portion of the meeting will resume in the North Ballroom in the Student Union Memorial Center, Level 3. On Friday morning, the board will reconvene an executive session in the Julie Modine Woodrow Boardroom in Old Main to review of assignments with the Enterprise Executive Committee and President Gary Mella, and for other items on the executive session agenda. Following the executive session on Friday, the board will adjourn its meeting. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session for the items on the executive session agenda? Thank you. There is a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries. The board now will convene in executive session. Good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone attending today's meeting. The meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents was called to order earlier this morning before convening an executive session. Today's public meeting is scheduled until 5 p.m. A link of the live stream of the public meeting is available on the board's website under A-Boards Live, or by joining to YouTube and searching for A-Boards News. I would like to ask Regent Zaragoza to lead Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to thank President Gary Mella and his outstanding team for hosting us today and for the warm hospitality. We're thrilled to be with you as you welcome us to the university as the new president, and are excited for all the amazing things that will happen under your tremendous leadership. I would like to invite President Gary Mella to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Chair Mata, and really my very hearty, warm welcome to all of you. I had very little to do with the arrangements for this meeting, so let me just acknowledge all the people who spent so much time and effort doing that, our staff on whom this university rests. So thank you all for all you've done here. So I want to thank the Regents for joining us here on our beautiful campus. And we arranged special weather for you. I hope you're enjoying it. We're certainly pleased to welcome you and to host this group. The longer I've been at the University of Arizona, and it's only been 6 weeks, the more excited I am for the future of this great university. I've enjoyed meeting colleagues from all across the university, as well as partners and supporters from throughout Arizona and actually around the world, interestingly. So I just wanted to share a couple of examples with you. On one day, on a single day, single morning actually, about a few weeks ago, it just gives you a glimpse into why I'm so excited about this role. We had an NSF site visit team here, and they were considering the renewal of our Center for Quantum Networks, which is building a quantum internet. This is a very exciting, cutting-edge thing. If quantum computing is to go anywhere, that's what needs to happen. Then I went to a pain and addiction symposium at the HSIAB, where we partner with Oklahoma State on this extremely relevant, important, painful area of opioid addiction and things like this. And we have a lot of expertise in that area. And then I met with the director of the French National Science Foundation, the CNRS, because they had chosen the University of Arizona a few years ago as their first major international collaboration center. So that just one morning. And I was so thrilled that there's so much going on here at this university. Our faculty, our staff, our students have positioned us so very well. We've had many international groups come through, and including, for example, recently, I think a couple of days ago, we hosted a large group of Indian university presidents with whom I've been working for some time to uplift tertiary education in India. and they were here to learn about what we do and how we can collaborate, and our on Arizona Online folks and others, and certainly Arizona International engaged with them. So that was a great visit. Certainly met with some of our most important philanthropic partners. They're all uniformly very excited about the future of this great university. I've also had, obviously and rightly, a focus on internal constituencies. I've tried to meet as many folks as possible. Certainly, I've been meeting with our senior leaders regularly and our deans as well. We've had multiple meetings already, individually and in groups. I've also met with the governance groups, the faculty senate leadership, the staff council, ASUA, the grad students, and that'll be a regular occurrence. We'll be meeting regularly. And I see Steve Patterson back there. We've been having regular meetings about campus safety, which of course is one of our highest responsibilities to our students and to our staff and faculty. So there have also been happy things like our outstanding faculty awards. We're grateful that Regent Mata joined us to honor the accomplishments of our great colleagues. So it really reinforced these kinds of engagements, and there are many more I can keep listing. It reinforced for me the University of Arizona's strength as a leader in interdisciplinary research, and the impact it creates as the foundation for life-changing student experiences and as a seed for transformational advancements in human knowledge and certainly technology. So I must also say that very early on, I attended my first University of Arizona homecoming. And I have to say that the Wildcats celebrate like no other university I've been at. It was quite the event, the bonfire and all that, and the bear down spirit is strong. I can tell you that. I hope you can attend the homecoming one of these days. And that's all just from my first 6 weeks, right? So there's so much more happening here, and I'm very eager to continue learning, engaging with different groups on campus in Tucson and Southern Arizona, across the state and beyond. I am looking forward to our reception this evening with our shining undergraduates. I hope every single one of you is able to make it. Please do, even if you had other engagements, cancel them. You'll really like this. There's 38 or so that'll be there talking about their work. And I've looked at their bios, and boy, none of us would get into school the way they're, how high quality they are. So, and then tomorrow morning, you'll have the opportunity to engage with an exciting group of faculty and their graduate students who are doing interdisciplinary research. So folks who are leading centers that work with efforts across multiple colleges. And you'll see how working across disciplines is what leads us to addressing these complicated challenges that the world faces. So I hope this evening and tomorrow morning's events will be enjoyable for you. So of course, the key to our success is our leadership team that can advance our bold goals. And I was very pleased to introduce to you just a few minutes ago, our Senior VP for Research and Innovation, Tomas Diaz de la Rubia. You will have other opportunities to engage with him and several of our leaders. We'll also have additional leadership updates in the months ahead as the provost search gets underway, and as we identify a new leader for our enrollment management, who will take the reins from Casey Urquidez, who's preparing to retire after decades of great service to the university. And finally, I want to congratulate some of our students. The Pride of Arizona Marching Band was presented with the Sudler Trophy during halftime at last Friday's football game. This is considered the Heisman Trophy for the marching band world and recognizes sustained excellence from this program. And as you know, Arizona football won that game against the University of Houston. That was a big win for us. What about that 61-yard field goal? Wow, I was on the field for that. I also want to congratulate the national champions women's triathlon team, which won the first title on Saturday, November 9th, in the program's second year of existence. I think all our teams need to get a cue from there. I'm pleased that ASU could come in second, and one of their athletes won the Division I individual title. So it's great that Arizona is so well represented in this. But this win was one of team depth with our Wildcats placing second, third, sixth, ninth, and 13th out of the 195 finishers. So this wasn't just one or two. And this race has a 750-meter swim. It has a 20-kilometer bike ride and a 5K run. If I could do one of those, I'd be happy. Congratulations, Tri-Cats. And with that, thank you all for being here again, and I look forward to our discussions.
Thank you,
Samantha.
President Garimella. Exciting time for you, and just in 6 weeks, we heard everything he has done. I can't imagine how things are gonna evolve now. So our first item is the call of the audience. If you have any materials for the regions, please give them to our board secretary, Suzanne Templin, sitting, where is Suzanne? Sitting at the left side, and she will distribute them to the regions. Pursuant the board policy, time has been set aside for a call to the audience. This is an opportunity for individuals to address the entire board in a public setting to express their views or concerns regarding matters of board governance. The board reserves the right to limit the number of presenters on any topic. Regions do not respond to comments made during the call to the audience. However, we do hear your remarks, and we ask the appropriate person to follow up and to provide us the information on any issues raised. When you are called to speak, please proceed to the lectern. To keep us on schedule, each speaker has no more than 3 minutes. As a courtesy to each speaker, Suzanne will hold up a sign signaling how much time the speaker has remaining. At the end of your 3 minutes, we ask you to conclude your remarks. Suzanne, can you please proceed?
Thank you, Chair Mata. Our first speaker is Lydia Nikian, followed by Gary Rhodes.
Thank you, Arizona Board of Regents and President Garimella, for seeing us today. My name is Lydia Nguyen, and I am here representing the students of the University of Arizona. Yesterday morning, students at the University of Arizona received an email stating, this year, the university welcomed its largest and most diverse class in history as it continues to create a welcoming and inclusive environment where everyone feels valued. That same afternoon, a student administrative forum was held with senior administrators John Arnold and Ron Marks regarding the abrupt decision to remove enrollment management to the 4th floor of the student union, displacing the fraternity and sorority programs, the cultural and inclusive experiential learning opportunities, and survivors advocacy, without prior notice or plans for relocation. This decision deeply destabilized these groups and its users and was a major transgression against marginalized students. In a time where student diversity is at its highest, it is vital that the University of Arizona does not alienate the very groups that create the culture that makes the university home to all. As such, I believe it is the responsibility of President Garimella, the University of Arizona Senior Administration, and the Arizona Board of Regents to protect these values. We call for the implementation of safeguards that protect marginalized students and communities now and in the future. Arizona Board of Regents and President Garimella, given the historical pattern of decisions at the University of Arizona, which have displaced student spaces and resources, what concrete steps will you take to not only protect these spaces moving forward, but also ensure the voices of students and staff are actively involved in these decisions that impact our future? Thank you for your time.
Gary Rhodes, followed by Charlie.
I love our students. My name's Gary Rhodes. Good afternoon. I'm chair of the General Faculty Financial Recalibration Committee. Thank you to Regent Duvall for the shout outs last year, and to CFO Arnold, who was here, I'm not sure where he is now, and Ron for meeting with us last academic year. I've learned from my wife to start with the positive. The changes in enrollment management signal a commitment to dramatically reducing the tuition discounting that has cost this institution between $25 and $40 million a year annually for 5 years. I hope that will happen, because we recommended this and others did as well, that programs like Sunnyside Cats, which target first-gen students, low-income students, Arizona residents, befitting our land grant and HSI mission and tapping into the growth demographic of students, will continue and even be expanded in other places. And I hope as well that the monies that are saved from reducing that tuition discounting from 42% down into the 20s will be cycled back to the academic units, which have been getting undercompensated for the student credit hours they generate because of the tuition discounting. So it's not just overspending, it's also undercompensation, given a 20% reduction in the payback for student credit hours over the past 5 years. 2 other recommendations that our committee made had to do with protecting the academic core to serve students and research in our service missions, and to ensure expenditure controls on administrative costs and initiatives. And there's been some progress, but also some backsliding. It does not protect the academic core to do 3 to 5% cut scenarios across the board for all academic units that's at the same level as it is for support units, particularly when 95% of the overspending is accounted for by 14% of the units, which are mostly not academic units. It does not protect the academic core to have fewer faculty, fewer support staff, and fewer graduate teaching assistants for more students. It does not serve those students. It doesn't ensure their academic success or enhance our research mission to continue to grow administrative expenditures, which is an ongoing 10-year issue. And so in all of these regards, what I would encourage you to do is to recognize that students are literally 13% more this year, are paying more to have less access to fewer people per student. So what I would encourage President Garamella to do, given your welcoming remarks to us several months ago about centering students, is to bear down on these administrative costs that don't serve students and don't serve our public image well at all. And instead to concentrate on enhancing the working conditions of faculty and the space and the expenditures on the support staff and faculty who work with the students, because literally those working conditions, as the students helped you learn yesterday, are their learning and living conditions. Thank you.
Charlie, followed by Natalia Apanovich.
Good morning. Love that we brought up athletics right now. Seriously, so fantastic as we learn how much of a hole that is burning in all of our pockets. You know, while I was at NAU as a student, I did research myself. I got funded $5,000 from the Office of Undergraduate Research. And I looked into the students that I was serving and the needs that they had. And truly, we were already failing. So many students were dropping out because they didn't get the support they needed. They were experiencing discrimination, and when they reported it, nothing happened. And now, let's continue to attack DEI. Let's continue to attack student services, because as our student struggles, you know what matters? Let's continue to fund athletics. Let's continue to fund, you know, protecting extremists coming onto our campus. Let's continue to fund all of these things while our workers, the people who run these universities, they continue to struggle. And they've been struggling for years, and it continues to get worse. And y'all have done what? We are actively celebrating a ranking we've received from an organization who destroys trust of student support, who destroys protections we have against sexual assault, and our survivors on our campuses who are receiving no support, and this issue continues to get worse. And we are allowing these extremists to come to our campus, talk to these students, convince them that we should be voting for people who want to make this issue worse. Y'all are already struggling with money. You are already not getting money from the state legislature. And now we're going to continue, have people who are going to continue cutting these funds. And so y'all have made this decision, and now what? These people have lives, these people have jobs, and y'all don't care. You get to continue to make your money, and so what? I really encourage y'all. I mean, a lot of y'all have business degrees. Y'all know finances, and yet y'all have not made any look towards any progress. Instead, you're giving money to people who've already been fired, who've done a bad job, and you're giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars instead of funding the people who actually do work on this campus, who actually support students, who are actually tackling these issues, unlike you folks. Thanks.
Natalia Apanovich, followed by Beatrice Urea.
Good afternoon. My name is Natalia Apanovich, and I'm a lecturer at the University of Arizona. This is my third year teaching here, and this semester I have the heaviest teaching load. 4 courses, with 2 of them having both in-person and online sections. 134 students in total, no increase in my salary. Today, however, I want to bring to your attention the recent impact that reduced service and research for contingent faculty have on the quality of the education offered at this institution. Due to the financial mismanagement of the University of Arizona, many contingent faculty received contract renewals with service and research either reduced or completely eliminated. Using the words of John Arnold, to avoid the hidden costs of an already overstressed workforce. This is especially important for those on year-to-year contracts. Decreased service among contingent faculty threatens shared governance and our ability to influence the decision-making that directly impacts our work and the quality of education we can offer. For example, eliminating service excludes us from participation in curriculum development, mentorship, and serving on committees like the Council of Faculty Members. The right balance of service can build connections and provide opportunities for students to participate in internships, research, and networking. This helps students find jobs after they earn their degree. Decreased service compromises our students' future. At the same time, some contingent faculty are asked to be program chairs and lead committees without proper compensation or a course release, leading to diminished ability to do their teaching work. This is simply unacceptable, exploitative, and compromises the quality of education we provide. Additionally, reduced research minimizes opportunities for professional development, which is how we stay current in our fields. Research and creative work lead to classroom innovation and inform our teaching. It also connects us to the national and global scholarly community, all of which directly benefits our students. Without being a part of the larger academic community, we cannot offer education that is relevant, competitive, and science-driven. We believe it is possible to achieve the right balance between teaching, service, and research to provide the best education for our students. Therefore, we urge you to support the contingent faculty, as by supporting us, you're supporting the students. Thank you.
Beatrice Urea, followed by Hypatia Meraviglia.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Beatriz Urrea, and I am an associate professor of practice in the Department of Spanish and Portuguese, College of Humanities. This is my 26th year teaching at this institution. In every one of those 26 years, I have taught hundreds of students. I love my teaching profession. We contingent faculty, and I am contingent faculty, comprise 47% of the total faculty at the University of Arizona, and we teach over 50% of all undergraduate courses. As professionals in higher education, we care deeply about our students' learning and their learning conditions. Over the past few years, University of Arizona administrators have consistently increased undergraduate class sizes. The recent financial mismanagement has exacerbated this trend. Now, the University of Arizona has the highest ratio of students to faculty among our peer institutions, much to the detriment of student learning. Larger numbers of students mean that contingent faculty have less time to provide quality feedback on our students' assignments, which negatively impacts the development of their critical thinking skills. Larger numbers of students hinder contingent faculty's time for professional development, participation in shared governance, and pedagogical innovation. Larger numbers of students limit opportunities for contingent faculty to create meaningful relationships with our students, to mentor them in their career and professional readiness. Given these increasingly limited learning conditions for our students, it is clear that the university is making promises it can't keep to ensure the quality of our students' education. We, contingent faculty, call on the Arizona Board of Regents to support contingent faculty and our students by reducing undergraduate class sizes across all departments and all disciplines. By doing so, ABER will help all of us to regain trust in the quality and reputation of our institution's education. Thank you for listening.
Hypatia Meraviglia, followed by Marine.
I'm Hypatia Meraviglia. I'm a grad student at ASU. And next semester, ASU is imposing a new $350 fee on every student, ostensibly to cover the $24 million shortfall from state cuts to higher education. But $350 times 160,000 students is $56 million, and I don't have to have a math degree to tell you that's about double the shortfall. Don't forget that ASU is sitting on a $1.5 billion endowment either. In fact, it might be perfectly reasonable for us to ask some of y'all, including President Michael Crow and Provost Nancy Gonzalez, to help pay some of that surcharge. After all, last year y'all saved tens of thousands of dollars in state taxes because in 2021, under former Governor Doug Ducey, the legislature eliminated progressive income taxation and dramatically dropped state income tax rates for wealthy Arizonans. Or perhaps each university president can pay this out of the massive raise you just received. A couple of years ago, the state was flush with COVID dollars from the federal government and capital gains revenues from the booming stock and housing markets. But instead of investing that in public education, they decided, why not just give away $2 billion a year, with 70% of it going to households above $200,000 a year. The bill for that came due. With COVID dollars long gone, the state faced about $1.2 billion in cuts for fiscal year 2024 and 2025, all because they decided wealthy people, like all y'all, should no longer have to pay their fair share. Instead, students, who are often juggling more than one job alongside classes just to eat 3 square meals a day, students get the bill. For context, in 2025, the state will spend 60% more on corrections than on universities. Clearly, our education is not a priority for the legislature. The few of y'all who aren't scrolling on Twitter while I'm talking may note that U of A is facing the same cuts to higher education as ASU. Rather than require an extra $350 from every student, last year, and listen to me real good on this one, because of student demands, they rolled fees in with tuition, which means students with a tuition waiver, including grad students, no longer have to pay a substantial portion of fees. Let's review. The state legislature cut higher ed funding because they'd rather line the pockets of the wealthy, like all y'all, and incarcerate en masse. U of A, during a financial crisis, waived fees for a substantial portion of its students. And ASU, rather than used less than 2% of its $1.5 billion endowment, has elected to charge every last student more than twice what's needed to make up the loss. And somehow, don't it beat all, y'all keep getting raises. Students, where are you gonna find $350? Skipping meals, skipping medicine, taking debt? Our working conditions are directly connected to our learning conditions. Stand with the United Campus Workers of Arizona. We won at U of A, we can win at ASU and NAU, and together we will win the higher education institutions we need and deserve.
Marine, followed by Michael Kentcher.
Good afternoon. I am Marine Tahir, Vice President at Graduate Student Government at ASU. I'm here to speak against the raise in the student fee that stems from the state tax cuts that is forcing tuition surcharge. $5 may not seem significant to a lot of people in this room, but to international students, it holds immense value. $5 translates to 1,500 rupees in Pakistan, enough to feed my family back home. For students who come here chasing the promise of the great American dream, this increase represents not just a financial challenge, but a personal sacrifice. Where are students supposed to find this money? Should we cut back on our meals, skip essential medications, or abandon our support for our families back home, or just forego our basic necessities? This burden disproportionately impacts international students, as I am, many of whom are not just students, but are parents and primary supporters of their loved ones. International students are also not allowed to work off campus, are only limited to 20 hours per week on campus. So it's not that we don't want to work to fund this fee, we just don't have the money to pay. Hence, such a steep increase would force us to make impossible choices, eroding the very foundation of why we came here in the very first place, which is the pursuit of the great American dream. Thank you.
Michael Kencher, followed by Alicia Hall.
Members of the board, my name is Michael Kincher, pronouns are they, them. I'm a PhD student at Arizona State University, and I am here today as the Assembly President of Graduate Student Government, reading a statement on behalf of our Student Workers Relations Committee. I'd like to bring to your attention the financial pressures faced by student workers, an unfair burden that they are being asked to shoulder. ASU student workers, graduate, undergraduate, and international, from you've heard from today, are all critical to the university's daily operations, yet these students face untenable working conditions that hinder their academic success and well-being. Despite already balancing demanding jobs with the challenges of being a full-time student, many of our student workers are being asked to bear the cost of our state failing to fund our public universities. One student in dining services recently shared their frustration, quote, "How can I get another job with such short notice when I'm already stressed with assignments, exams, and projects?" Like many others, this student is forced to navigate the realities of paying for tuition, rent, and groceries while trying to meet academic expectations. Graduate student workers, such as TAs, RAs, and others, say, "I pressured to share and pressured to work beyond my 20-hour limit. When I was raised the kind of concerns about this, I was told just do it anyway." This kind of exploitation contributes to student burnout and mental health issues. International students, as was just mentioned, are restricted by requirements on their visas. It's not that they don't want to work, it's that they are legally prevented from working. They do not have the opportunity to earn the money necessary to sustain themselves with the fees they are being charged. In addition to low wages, students at ASU, NAU, and U of A are burdened with student fees that range from $300 to $1,000 per semester. It is unacceptable that workers, many of whom are integral to the operations of the university and already earn below a living wage, are charged these fees. U of A recently bundled the fees into tuition, which, as mentioned, has affected positively many of our graduate student workers who no longer have to spend their already limited paycheck paying these fees. We demand fair compensation for student workers, ensuring wages reflect the work that we do, predictable and fair scheduling, allowing students to balance their jobs and academics, increased mental health support and comprehensive health care, including dental and vision, to help students cope with the stress of work and study, equitable opportunities for international students, ensuring they can access work hours they need to survive and support their families, bundling student fees with tuition at ASU and NAU, as the University of Arizona has done to reduce financial stress for all students. We urge the board, we strongly urge the board to advocate for these solutions to ensure that all students, the students that make these universities run and the students that these universities are fundamentally here to serve, can succeed without sacrificing their academic goals, personal health, safety, and well-being. Thank you.
Alicia Hall, followed by Jasmine Tafoya.
Good afternoon to the board. Hello, my name is Alicia Hall, and I'm the Administrative Vice President at the Associated Students for the University of Arizona. Outside of my role as AVP, I am also a resident assistant for the Building Leaders and Creating Knowledge community. So as someone who serves 2 different communities on campus, including the 44,000 students on our campus and our living learning community, I understand how important mental health is to students with a lot on their plate. At the University of Arizona, our students' mental health has varied. On September 22nd, 2024, a community member died after being fatally shot on our college campus in front of 4 common areas of residence halls. This has heavily impacted our students' mental health and the perception of safety on campus. This has also impacted the mental health of student leaders such as residence assistants, our student government group, and peer leaders who were to console students who were facing traumatic overturns of this event. Further, the 2024 election has increased suicidal ideation and a lack of mental resilience in our students and students across the country. One of the biggest mental health resources on campus, Campus Health, offers a crisis support and program called CAPS, which is Counseling and Psych Services. This program has supported many students on campus while yielding amazing results for students affected by crises. 77% of students who use CAPS have reported an increase of mental resilience. There was over 140% increase in feelings of hope after using CAP resources, and 63% of students have increased their academic success to help their overall success. CAPS is an amazing program, but unfortunately, CAPS isn't free. A CAPS consultation appointment costs $25, and every appointment after that is an additional $25. Same-day crisis for events that would happen back in September is $35. Not only are many students able to afford this cost, but also many students aren't able to use their insurance, so they cannot afford the cost of an appointment. But as amazing as these resources are, there needs to be an increase in support for our crisis teams. As the university works on an increasing safety on our campus, there needs to be an investment in crisis teams to support our students and staff as the traumatic events are happening, such as shootings. Our departments, such as housing, the U Arizona Police Department, and colleges all benefit from crisis and mental health support. Our crisis teams support teams such as TAMP and UAPD crisis teams, but they are understaffed, which leads to crisis teams not being able to properly support our students and faculty and staff, which makes crisis support for students difficult. It is a responsibility of our institution and our Arizona Board of Regents to provide proper support for our crisis teams and to help provide equitable resources for our institution and our students. Our students provide our institution with enriching research, art, business ideas, and STEM initiatives, and it makes me proud to call myself a student at the University of Arizona. But it's time for our regents and our administration to provide our students with the mental health tools necessary to thrive and to continue to make the University of Arizona the amazing university it is. Thank you.
Jasmine Tafoya, followed by Carly Vandermersch.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Jasmine Tafoya, and I currently serve as the Executive Vice President for the Associated Students of the University of Arizona. In addition to that, I'm also a resident assistant and previously was a desk assistant. I have witnessed firsthand the challenges, complexities, and impacts of the U of A housing system on our students. I am here to shed light on these issues, not only to highlight the gaps, but also advocate for meaningful change. On-campus housing costs has steadily increased by 3% annually, placing a growing financial burden on low-income students, first-generation students, and international students. For example, a dorm that costs $9,660 last year now costs $9,960, making housing less affordable and forcing many students to make tough choices between housing, food, and education. The financial strain is exacerbated by mandatory meal plans, managed separately by the student union, and dining services, which creates a disconnect in addressing the total cost burden. The basic meal plan now costs $4,018 annually, with unused swipes expiring and daily restrictions. In addition to this, housing should provide a sense of safety and security, yet concerns persist. Many resident halls face such as inadequate security measures, tailgating, and students not knowing their proper safety protocol for fire alarms. As RAs, we often receive safety-related complaints from residents ranging from a number of things, and we lack the resources to address these issues effectively. I've been an RA for over 3 years, and I can attest to the value of this role, but also to the expectation that often comes with it. We are expected to be everything: mentors, mediator, first responders, and policy enforcers, all while maintaining our academic and personal lives. This training we receive is often inadequate for the realities we face. For example, RAs are not adequately prepared for the emotional toll of supporting residents in crisis, mediating high-stakes conflicts, or addressing severe mental health concerns. This role is mentally and emotionally tolling. The constant disruptions, lack of privacy, and expectation to always be on call, taking a significant toll on our mental health, along with the safety concerns that come with the dorms that cause you to walk outside from building to building at night to do round. This creates a cycle where the very individual tasked with fostering community and support are often feeling unsupported themselves. No amount of free housing or cat cash is worth this feeling. We're asking for more affordability, safety, support for staff, resources for international students, flexible housing options, and simplifying and clarifying housing processes is essential to prevent students from falling through these cracks due to technicalities, ensuring no one misses out on housing because of missed deadlines or unclear instructions. Thank you.
Carly Vandersmert, followed by Alex Lee.
Good afternoon, Regents and members of the board. My name is Carly Vandermersch, and I am the 2024-2025 Student Body President for the Associated Students of Northern Arizona, or as ASNAU, that's how we refer to it. Last ABOR meeting, I stood here and addressed you all on the behalf of other Tri-U Student Body Presidents to affirm our stance on the importance of amplifying the student voice in our democratic process. I also spoke about our collective efforts that would focus on raising awareness and educating our student communities about voter registration and the importance of their vote, as well as to helping facilitate opportunities for our students to vote. As a result, just this week, All In, an organization that empowers colleges and universities to achieve excellence in nonpartisan student democratic engagement, named Northern Arizona University, Arizona State University, and the University of Arizona as part of their 2024 All In Most Engaged Campuses for Student Voting. This is a tremendous accomplishment for our state, and I'm beyond proud of my fellow student body governments for their hard work in promoting voter engagement on their campuses. I would also like to thank President Cruz Rivera and NAU's Faculty Senate for their support as ASNAU worked on a resolution to facilitate students' participation in the democratic process, for their support as we held events to increase voter awareness, and for their support as we helped to register students on campus. Thank you to both of you. It is my hope that NAU leadership continues to support initiatives that facilitate voter engagement among students, and that the Arizona Board of Regents joins us in these efforts. Amazing strides have been made, and I'm proud of the recognition that our in-state universities have received. I'm sure that we can work together in the future to accomplish much more. Thank you.
Alex Lee, followed by Isha Seda.
Good afternoon, esteemed Board of Regents. My name is Alex Lee, and I am the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Associated Students of Northern Arizona University. I come to you today to make a case for a largely ignored and shunned population that is actively yearning for education, currently and formerly incarcerated individuals. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, Arizona currently has around 52,000 people behind bars or in some kind of custody. Furthermore, this state's incarceration rate is 710 per 100,000, with the United States average being 614. As you may already know, those who are no longer incarcerated can receive federal financial aid through FAFSA. However, the FAFSA form still asks about criminal history. While drug offenses are no longer affect eligibility, offenses in general make it difficult to receive aid that is not in the form of loans. This may not seem like a direct issue. However, formerly incarcerated individuals usually must also pay debts such as restitution, court fees, and pay-to-stay fees. The extra addition of student loans is inequitable and would make successful re-entry much more difficult. So I implore that ABOR begins working directly with private donor networks throughout the big three universities to set up private scholarships and grant funding specifically targeted towards formerly incarcerated individuals who want to pursue higher education, as this can both reduce recidivism and give these people another chance at life. My solution is two-pronged. As of this semester, all of the big three universities have established an Inside Out program. I am part of NAU's inaugural one. Inside Out is a program that allows outside students to learn alongside inside students at one of the many prison complexes in Arizona. From firsthand experience, I can see how passionate these students are to learn. Something professors have wanted to explore thoroughly is the addition of ASU, U of A, and NAU courses being taught within prison walls. I specify the colleges because when the individual is released, it would be easier to directly transfer those credits into an undergraduate degree in state. At ASU, the prison education program is offered as an internship to graduate students who have the ability to teach weekly courses within prison walls. Modeling this approach, I implore that ABOR, along with the relevant ASU faculty and staff, work with U of A and NAU to begin establishing these courses. The supply and the demand is there. Faculty just need the institutional support to do so. As per the preamble in ABOR's policy manual, you all are, quote, entrusted by the people of the state of Arizona with the responsibility for developing and maintaining a system of higher education that provides an opportunity for education to all persons. If you feel as though you align with these policies, I encourage you to truly provide education for all persons by giving this population the chance to obtain a degree and move beyond their past transgressions. Thank you.
Isha Seira, followed by Adriana Grijalva.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of the Arizona Board of Regents, fellow representatives, and guests. My name is Isha Seira, and I am the Awareness Coordinator for the Associated Students of Northern Arizona University. Today, I want to address an issue impacting our students at NAU. Food insecurity, and the urgent need for dietary accommodations that reflect the diverse backgrounds of our student body. NAU has worked hard to attract students from across the country and around the world through exchange programs and international student recruitment. But there is a disconnect between our efforts to bring in these students and the reality of our campus services, especially when it comes to meeting their most basic needs. For Muslim students, finding certified halal food is a constant challenge, and Jewish students face similar issues with kosher options. Many Hindu students, as well as vegetarians and vegans, worry about cross-contamination with ingredients like beef or other non-vegetarian items. This is a crucial gap, one that places added stress on students who should be focusing on their studies, not on whether they can find meals that align with their beliefs and values. The recent situation with Mountain View dorms is a prime example. We built a great program, a welcoming space for students, but we didn't maintain it as well as we could have. The dorm became infested with bats in the walls, an unacceptable situation for any student. This incident led to unexpected housing insecurities, leaving many students without a stable place to live on campus. It shows us that it's not about building programs, it's about maintaining and adapting them to ensure they continue to serve our students. In the same way, we need to build inclusive dining services and ensure they keep up with the evolving needs of our diverse student body. When students don't have access to meals that respect their dietary restrictions, they're forced to make compromises, often skipping meals or managing on whatever they can find. This directly affects their academic performance, focus, and well-being. We can't ask our students to excel if we're not supporting them in something as basic as food. To make NAU a truly supportive environment, we need to improve dining services by offering halal and kosher food options, addressing cross-contamination concerns for Hindu, vegetarian, and vegan students, and providing reliable choices across dietary preferences. When students feel respected and supported in their needs, they are free to focus on their education and thrive. I hope you will consider these initiatives and ensure NAU lives up to the promises it makes to its students, both domestic and international. Thank you.
Adriana Grijalva, followed by Jaime Fatas.
Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Arizona Board of Regents. My name is Adriana Grijalva, and I am honored to stand before you today as the ASUA Student Body President here at the University of Arizona. This year, I got to serve as a nonpartisan civic engagement chair here at the University of Arizona. I'm here to talk about an initiative that has the potential to empower our student body and amplify the voice of our next generation of leaders. When we launched Wildcats Take Action, Your Voice, Your Impact, our goal was clear: to inspire and support students in becoming active participants in the democratic process. Voting is not just a right, it is a powerful tool for change. Through this platform, we wanted to create an inclusive environment where students felt equipped and motivated to engage in the electoral process. This year, we were proud to work alongside a range of campus partners, including the Associated Students of the University of Arizona, the School of Government and Public Policy, the Executive Office of the President, U of A Athletics, Government and Community Relations, U of A Marketing and Communications, Fraternity and Sorority Programs, Admissions, U of A Office of Inclusion, Campus Store, Residence Life, Recreation Center, and the Student Union Memorial Center. Together, we provided early, emergency, and election day voting sites on campus, hosted workshops, and organized a week of activities for National Voters Education Week. We also created resources like the Bear Down and Vote web page, which included frequently asked questions, tabs, and events details, all designed to make voting more accessible and understandable. Throughout our collaborations with Piedmont County Elections, U of A Communications, and the campus community, we made sure students had every opportunity to engage, whether through tabling events, communications like the Bear Down Rundown page, or direct outreach efforts. This result speaks for themselves. The University of Arizona, alongside the other universities, was recognized as one of the most engaged campuses for student voting in 2024 as part of the All in Democracy Challenge. Election day turnout was extraordinary, with seeing students wait for hours to cast their vote, some even for the very first time. Seeing their enthusiasm and dedication were truly inspiring, proof that when students speak, the results speak for themselves. But we could do way more, and I'm proud to share that all Arizona student body presidents have signed a joint statement committing to enhancing voting efforts and amplifying student voices. Now we invite the Arizona Board of Regents to join this effort. Your support in strengthening these initiatives will be crucial in building a future where our students not only feel heard, but empowered to make a difference. Thank you for your time and for your continued support in fostering a culture of civic engagement across our state. Thank you.
Our final speaker, Jaime Fatas.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. I hope that you are in good health and good spirits. My name is Jaime Fatas Cabeza. I am a specialist, an associate specialist, and an associate professor of the practice in translation, English, Spanish, for the health and the legal sectors in the state. I work at the Spanish and Portuguese department at the College of Humanities, and this is my 19th year at the university. Arizona universities, as you know, heavily depend on contingent faculty. I've heard today that 46% of the faculty at this university are contingent faculty, which are hired on short-term contracts, often for just a year or less. This precarious arrangement, which amounts to an ever-present threat of non-renewal regardless of performance, is not a career builder, it is a coercive tool. In addition to this precariousness, contingent faculty salaries fall far below the cost of living in Arizona. Meager raises do not keep pace with inflation. Meanwhile, Arizona K-12 teachers, while also amongst the lowest paid in the nation, enjoy better pay and working conditions, making high school teaching an increasingly attractive option for many of us. You've heard from some of my colleagues today that abusive contracts, low salaries, budget cuts, and increasing workloads compounding by the growing demands of technological teaching, threaten our livelihoods, cause high turnover, and erode morale. Higher education no longer feels like a viable career. Many faculty see themselves as wounded tigers rather than proud wildcats. UA is a public land-grant university. The Board of Regents has a fiduciary duty to act with fairness, prudently, and transparently, avoiding even the appearance of conflicts of interest. Yet many of us see the excessive bonuses and self-rewarding practices of upper administrators as a blatant violation of this responsibility, an abandonment of the duty and respect and support that support the core principles that sustain public higher education. In a financial crisis caused in good part by poor management and grandiose and questionable acquisitions, showering money on powerful and affluent insiders feels like rubbing salt in the wound. While I doubt my words will bring about meaningful change, you've heard these complaints before to little avail, I hope that they will encourage others to speak out and demand accountability. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Chair Mata. Thank you, Chair Mata.
Thank you, everyone, for your remarks. The board will take a 5-minute break. Action under his tenure, from establishing the nation's first school of sustainability to opening the largest coral nursery of its kind in Hawaii, to leading an NSF-funded initiative to power regional climate solutions that offer economic opportunities across the Southwest. And on top of that, this morning, I was reading, the great news. So the National Institute of Standard and Technology, part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, announced today that it plans to award as much as $100 million to Arizona State University and DECA Technologies for the Chill USA initiative. Please give him another round of applause. Regent Penley?
Chair Mata, if I may add to what you've already said, this week we also heard news from ASU about the high ranking that they have in placement of students in terms of outcomes of student, which is very important to this board, that students have career opportunities in the future, whether they go to graduate school or take jobs, and ASU also was highly recognized in that way as well.
Thank you. Well, President Crowe, you have a great, start today with us too.
Well, I appreciate the applause. We also got land grants on Mars, so we're really, we're just moving forward.
Okay.
It's a low-cost option.
Thank you. So I want to continue with, great news too. So last month, Northern Arizona University renamed the College of Engineering, Informatics, and Applied Sciences to the Steve Sanghi College of Engineering. And thanks to a generous $10 million gift cash, the largest gift of its kind in NAU's 125 years history from Maria and Steve Sanghi. So another Cruz Rivera. So Steve Sanghi, who previously served as president and CEO of Arizona-based Microchip Technology, is an international business leader, author, and philanthropist with a long-standing interest in engineering, mathematics, and robotics education. Mr. Sanghi's gift comes at a pivotal time as growth in the semiconductor industry that demands a strong pipeline of talent from colleges and universities in engineering and related fields. Arizona is leading the way in this sector growth, and NAU is uniquely positioned to contribute with a deep commitment to educating Arizonan residents from all backgrounds and propelling them to workforce success in the state. So I was also honored for another great news to join the University of Arizona Health Sciences groundbreaking ceremony for the Center for Advanced Molecular and Immunological Therapies building. CAMI will anchor an innovation district that aims to establish the Phoenix Bioscience Core as a hub of cell and gene therapy research, startup activity, and corporate engagement. The dream of CAMI started to become a reality with initial support from the board's new economy initiative and additional funding from the state, the county, and the city, as well as philanthropic donations, makes this center possible. So please give them also another round of applause. So finally, we just celebrated Veterans Day. I want to share a video that provides a glimpse of the outstanding services provided by our universities to serve our veteran and military connected students. Thank you, and thank you to our men and women in uniform and to our veterans for their service and for their life throughout their career to support our nation. Next, the board is asked to approve the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda include items 10 to 16. Does anyone have any conflict to declare on these items 10 to 16 scheduled for consent? Seeing none and hearing none, I move that the board approve items 10 to 16 as listed on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Any abstention? The motion carries. For our next item, Executive Director Chad Sampson will provide an Executive Director update. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Mata. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and the regents and the presidents today. I am extremely grateful to be able to talk for just a couple of minutes about the Regents Grants Program, which directly supports the board's promise to Arizona and delivers on its mission to find solutions for the state's most pressing challenges. Regents have invested millions of dollars in this research grant program for the benefit of Arizona, and now is the time that the annual reports to these grants start to come in. So I wanted to take just a few moments to speak with each of you about the fruits of those grants. As I begin, I would like to recognize Regent Duvall. It's through his leadership on this initiative that these grants were born. Through his leadership and the board's support, they have fostered unique collaborations between our universities, state agencies, and local communities to deliver impressive results for Arizona. And Arizona's have proven to be valuable pathways. Arizona's Regents Grants have proven to be valuable pathways to showing our public universities' talent and our immense problem-solving skills. And it worked. Each member of this board knows that Arizona, while a beautiful place to live, faces a number of challenges: water scarcity, workforce retention, and environmental sustainability that require solutions. To address these challenges, the board smartly launched the Regents Grants Program as a new approach to collaborative research with our state agencies and our communities. By leveraging the board's ability to convene industry leaders, state agencies, and the resources and brilliant minds of Arizona's public universities, we successfully empowered our university researchers to apply their expertise, which is recognized around the globe here in Arizona, which builds better outcomes for Arizona, benefiting both Arizona's taxpayers, the state's environmental and commercial ecosystems. I'm going to today just take a moment to walk you through 3 examples of the grants. The first is improving desert tree health. Extreme heat in Arizona is nothing new. The board is very aware of the 100 days above 100 degrees this year, and there's an urgent need to adapt our urban ecosystems from the increasingly hot conditions we face here in the state year-round. With support from the Regents Grants, researchers at the University of Arizona and Arizona State University collaborated to tackle this issue, exploring new water conservation methods that our cities are in desperate need of, with tremendous results you can see on this slide. And I will note that as I looked at the number of grants we have funded, this was one that I didn't really push. And it turns out to be one of the best examples of a Regents grants. Brilliant minds collaborating to do practical research that benefits the state. Researchers at these two universities are exploring new ways of working with cities to improve water conservation, and the results on the slide show you what has happened. I'd like to just take a moment to play one quick tribute or media video we put together to talk about this program. So part of the purpose of Regents grants is to make sure Arizonans know that our universities are here for them. And this particular program is generating headlines. The results are generating great excitement within the state, among our communities, and with neighboring communities who are also experiencing drought and extreme heat conditions. Going forward, the researchers will be engaging further with municipalities, counties, and community groups to help shape the future of water use policies and guidelines in this state. I want to congratulate the Smart Water research teams as they've been recognized as an honor award recipient by the American Society of Landscape Architects, the highest honor in the field. And the team has also been invited to present their findings at the AGU 24 conference. If you're unfamiliar with that conference, that is the world's largest gathering of Earth and space scientists. And our team is in a top position to showcase Arizona's great talent. I would be remiss if I didn't spend a moment talking about the bark beetle. This, of all the grants, is my personal favorite, and so I worked with my team to include this. Beyond tackling issues of climate change in our urban landscapes, climate change is affecting our high country forests. NEU researchers are working to find and tackle the epidemic that the bark beetle and other harmful insects are wreaking on our forest, causing diseased and weakened trees. Millions of trees have been killed and weakened, leaving them vulnerable to raw and increased risk of forest fires. This is a growing challenge not just here in Arizona, but nationally and around the world. One of the biggest issues in handling this problem with invasive insects is only 2 people in Arizona are trained and certified to diagnose and mitigate the effects of bark beetle. NEU researchers are working with the Department of Arizona Fire and Forestry Management to develop a prototype handheld device which can detect unique sounds of invading insects. The challenge, although it may sound simple, is identifying the sound of these invasive insects in the jungle forest of noises. And if this works. Can I play that again? No, I won't, but we turned that volume up significantly so you could all hear it. But the bark beetle, identifying that sound among all the other forest sounds makes it incredibly difficult to do this job. This handheld device will allow forestry workers to diagnose bark beetles and other insect infestations within minutes and greatly expand the number of acres investigated, improving the state's ability to protect communities from wildfires. Already, neighboring states are highly invested and interested in this technology, and this is just the first of many technologies to address this issue.
What do they do when they hear these sounds? What's the solution?
The solution right now is to mitigate, to find the trees, be able to eliminate the bark beetle. The future of this, should it prove feasible, is to then be able to use these sounds without use other invasive mitigation techniques, but use the sound waves to stop them. So here's to the future. Lastly, I want to just spend a moment talking about Regents Community Grants, which was an offshoot of the Regents Grants. This is use of Regents Grants dollars to engage directly with local communities. Collaborative teams from Arizona's 3 public universities, all 3, spent 12 months studying Arizona's police and firefighting agencies and how they can better be equipped to address recruitment and retention challenges that have plagued our state with regard to workforce shortages in these public safety roles. Research teams conducted over 12,000 interviews and surveys with Arizona residents, law enforcement officers, and firefighter employees, and identified key factors influencing Arizona's public safety workforce. This task was so successful that the state agencies formed 5 sub-working groups to explore the recommendations given and shape future hiring and retention practices. Indeed, Craig Sullivan, the Executive Director for the County Supervisors Association, sent us a letter thanking us for this. And I'd like to read the last line of this quote that says, "This work is meaningful and we have been very grateful for this partnership." That is the kind of outcome we are looking for with the Regents Grants. So what's to come? I've used up my 5 minutes, but we are beginning to partner and work on projects with the following state agencies in the coming year. Thanks to the foresights of the Regents, the board has demonstrated that the collaboration between the university experts, state agency leaders, and community leaders can expedite the research process and create a new pathway to deliver problem-solving capabilities for the benefit of Arizona. Thank you. And with that, I'll stand for questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, Regent Penley?
Thank you, Chair Mata. Thank you very much, Chad, for that excellent presentation. What I liked about it, there are many parts I liked about it, but 2 of them are these. One is the focus of 2 of our major grants on water sustainability, to sustain both our communities. And I'm referring to the forestry one as well as the tree planting one, to sustain our communities and our very important agricultural industry in the state of Arizona. I have visited the labs of the Department of Forestry at NAU, and what most impressed me in those laboratories was something that I've always enjoyed in laboratories, and that was seeing NAU students working so closely with their faculty on research projects that dealt with disease and infection of trees and their sustainability. We have an excellent forestry program at Northern Arizona University. So to me, it's quite special to see that really helping us in the long run with the kind of forests that we will need to provide the kind of water future that this state really merits for its people and for its agricultural industry. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Regina Archuleta?
Thank you very much. I just want to just commend this work. I'm very supportive of this work and definitely want to see this continue as well as expanded. This is so meaningful to communities, especially the bark beetle and we have so many people in the rural areas that live in the wildland urban interface, and the bark beetle trees and how that impacts their lives. We've seen wildfire, we've seen subsequent flooding from wildfire, the impacts that it has to the watershed, to the communities that live there. It is work that is so meaningful to especially these rural communities. And so just wanted to give just a real example, because I've experienced it. I was a county supervisor. I was so glad that you put the County Supervisors Association up there, because we have so many communities in the rural area that benefit from this work and would not be able to engage in this type of science otherwise. And so just wanted to let you know that this is incredible work.
Thank you. Any other comment from any regions? Thank you very much. And Chad, thank you for your updated presentation. And also now we will be discussing and consider legislation affecting the University of Enterprise as our next item. And I would like to welcome Thomas Atkins to discuss our legislative affairs portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Chair Mata, Regents, Presidents. It's an honor to be here before you, though I do recognize the difficulty, the task I have of following bark beetles. But nevertheless, I will try to keep my update brief. I will provide a brief update on the recent election and then also talk about an item before you for board approval, which is our 2025 legislative policy positions. Before I begin, I'd like to express my gratitude, as I always like to do, for you, the regents, for your support this past year. Each of you understand the very unique opportunities and challenges that are presented to us each year by the state legislature. Your empathy and support is greatly appreciated. Under the direction and guidance of Executive Director Sampson, we have built a very capable government affairs team. Two of them are here today, Megan Gilbertson and Monica Trejo, and then Xavier Leal is man in the fort back in Phoenix. Our team recognizes that advocating on behalf of this board and on behalf of Arizona's public universities is a unique honor, and we take it very seriously, and we thank you for your faith and trust as we work together. I also want to thank and acknowledge the presidents for their work and for the strong collaboration of their very capable government affairs teams. So, getting to the meat of things, how do things look heading into the upcoming session of the new legislature? Well, in a macro sense, things are more or less the same. The Arizona House of Representatives has a Republican majority, as it did before, and the Arizona State Senate has a Republican majority, as it did before. The Senate is headed up again by President Warren Peterson, while the House has a new speaker in Steve Montenegro. And of course, Governor Hobbs remains our chief executive. It is noteworthy that all three of these leaders are alums of our three public universities. So we have that going for us, which is nice. While the final general election results have not yet been certified, before you is a list of the candidates for the races that have been called. We have flagged the leadership roles of those individuals as well as their committee assignments. In the Senate, our Education Committee Chair will be David Farnsworth, and in the House, our Education Committee Chair will be Matt Gress. The Senate has released its membership of the Education Committee, but we're still waiting for that from the House. Most of our non-budget issues that we deal with next session will go through these education committees. So we are naturally working with the incoming committee chairs and their staff to build relationships and work with them. In regards to the state budget, there is a sliver of good news here in so much as there's not a deficit. In fact, there is a very modest structural surplus. State budget planners, by their nature, tend to be what I would consider very lowercase c conservative in their projections. So the fact that they have projected a surplus, even a modest one, is a good sign, or at least it's not a bad sign. Right now, the governor and her team are working on preparing her budget proposal. That will be unveiled in January. The governor's team has a very difficult task of preparing a balanced budget that does two things. It addresses the governor's priorities while also addressing the diverse needs of the state. We are very appreciative of the governor and her team for their openness and willingness to work with us on our budget request for the universities. So moving on to the board action request in front of you today in your packets. That is the 2025 legislative policy positions. By way of a quick background, the board occasionally takes official registered positions on legislation that's pending at the state capitol. Board staff, in my case is the designated public lobbyist, and our team will register a formal position. The authority that we have as staff to take those positions is due to the adopted legislative policy positions of the board. Last year, there were almost 1,800 pieces of legislation to change some aspect of Arizona law. Our teams sort through all of those. We try to find those that we think will have an impact. We rely on the subject matter experts at the board office and at the universities to flag those bills that we think will have an impact. And on those that we do think will have an impact, either detrimental or positive, we register our position of support, opposition, or neutrality. So given that the board has new regents joining before us, I thought it would be appropriate for us to sort of revisit the legislative policy positions and give them a little bit of a refresh. And I'll just also add, to answer the question, why have policy positions? Well, really, in order for us to take positions on legislation, the board has to give us direction. The board can choose to, at any point, take a vote on every single bill that comes up. That can be a little arduous, scheduling special meetings, or the board can choose to adopt legislative policy positions that capture broad categories of legislation that give the maximum responsiveness to staff to engage with legislation. So this approach has been the practice of the board for the past several years. So up for consideration, the policy positions are nearly identical to what we've had in the past. What we have tried to do is retain the original intent of those policy positions, but to consolidate them in a way that makes it easier for us to communicate them to policymakers at the state capitol. Essentially, whereas before we had about 6 different policy categories, those have now been consolidated under 2 overarching umbrella policy positions, which are first, securing sustainable revenue for the universities, and second, protecting board interests. These 2 items are what allow and fuel the board to carry out its constitutional and statutory duties. The securing sustainable revenue is relatively self-explanatory, but this covers the categories of things like protecting or advocating for the board's budget request, or possibly opposing any reductions in state funding. This also protects the board's tuition and fee-setting authority. Protecting board interest is really about ensuring that the board retains its legal authority to fulfill its duty. Examples of this would be including advocating for initiatives that might help make it easier for students to transition between institutions. This may also mean that the board staff could oppose legislation that would impair or restrict the board's rulemaking authority, or limit in any way the board's authority to provide for public order on campuses. This would allow essentially the board staff to engage on efforts to oppose, say, guns on campus and things like that. Additionally, this category authorizes us to engage on bills impacting the board's authority to establish academic requirements and compete in intercollegiate sports. So I just want to reiterate that with the approval of these policy positions, board staff will have the authority to engage on legislation, but we don't do that in a vacuum. We coordinate with board leadership, and we provide at least weekly updates to the full board on every bill that we're tracking, as well as those that we take any positions. And of course, the board always retains its authority to engage on legislation issue by issue. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Any questions from the regents? I see none, and I hear none, so I move that the board approve the legislative policy positions as presented and describe it in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Any abstention? The motion carries. Thank you, Thomas. For item number 3, Arizona State University asked the board to approve their request for appointment of Regents Professor. Provost Gonzalez with Arizona State University will provide an overview, and she will be coming now, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Regents Chair Mata, today Arizona State University asked the board to approve the appointment of 3 Regents Professors. As you know, Regents Professors offer the highest honor and recognition of distinction for our tenured faculty member at our institutions. These faculty are nominated, and an advisory committee evaluates all nominations following an established review process. The president then considers the recommendations provided from the committee and decides which name should go forward to the board for consideration. On this occasion, 3 names are recommended by President Crow. So the first faculty member is Hao Yan, the Milton D. Glick Distinguished Professor in the School of Molecular Sciences. Professor Hao Yan is a leading figure in the fields of DNA nanotechnology, biomimetics, and DNA origami engineering. His groundbreaking work has redefined these scientific areas and established ASU as a global leader in molecular design and biomimetics. Over 2 decades, he has created novel DNA-based structures and devices that have advanced our understanding and application of molecular assembly for diagnosing diseases, enhancing computing, and innovating material science. His contributions have not only broken new ground in these emerging fields, but have also influenced a new generation of researchers, creating a lasting legacy of scientific inquiry and innovation. Professor Jan's research output is prolific and impactful, with over 230 publications in high-impact journals such as Science, Nature, and Cell. His work is highly cited, with an H-index of 99 and over 40,000 citations, making him one of the most highly recognized scientists in the world. As a thought leader, his contributions have provided critical insights that drive the fields of nanotechnology, biomolecular engineering, and biomedical applications. His influence extends beyond research to his role as a prominent science communicator and mentor. He has held several significant editorial positions, including Associate Editor for ACS Applied Biomaterials and Science Advances. Professor Jan has been awarded numerous prestigious honors, including the Foresight Institute Feynman Prize in Nanotechnology, the Alexander von Humboldt Research Award, and fellowships with the National Academy of Inventors, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering. Truly a fantastic contributor on all levels at ASU and very worthy of this award. Our next professor is James Bell, a professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration. Professor Bell is an internationally acclaimed leader in planetary science, known for his key role in NASA missions like Mars Pathfinder, NEAR, Mars Odyssey, and the Mars Science Laboratory. He led the development of the panoramic camera on the Mars rovers Spirit and Opportunity, contributing significantly to our understanding of planetary surfaces. Professor Bell is a prolific and impactful scholar with over 280 papers as well as numerous other publications that he has amassed this record, often including graduate students and postdocs in his work. His extensive work includes hundreds of conference abstracts and the co-editing of 4 key professional reference books. As a consulting editor for Icarus and a distinguished visiting scientist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, his scientific leadership is widely recognized. Moreover, Dr. Bell has been an exceptional mentor, guiding many of his students to become leaders in planetary science, while encouraging them to take leadership author on major publications. Professor Bell has shown outstanding leadership also in public science communication, notably as a president of the Planetary Science Society until 2020, where he helped deliver science-driven insights to Congress and the public. His advocacy for transparent data release and his authorship of postcards from Mars and several other science books have made him a key communicator in planetary science at both the scientific levels as well as bringing it to the broader public, effectively bridging the gap between space exploration and public understanding. And then finally, we have Amber Wudich, a president's professor in the School of Human Evolution and Social Change. Professor Amber Wudich is world-renowned for her exceptional work on water insecurity. She directs the Global Ethnohydrology Study, a cross-cultural study of water knowledge and water management in over 20 countries. Her 2 decades of community-based fieldwork explore how people respond individually and collectively to extreme water scarce conditions. Professor Wudich has been a prolific scholar, authoring or co-authoring 6 books and over 200 research papers, as well as editing the journal Field Methods. She has raised over $80 million in research funds as part of a collaborative research teams from NSF, USDA, and the state of Arizona, as well as several other funders. And she is not only a first-rate expert on water insecurity, but she's launched new fields of scholarship, including in the areas of water insecurity measurement, water and global mental health, and household water sharing. She also co-authored foundational papers from the major theoretical approaches dominating research on water insecurity. While she has carried out over 2 decades of community-based fieldwork, she has also worked hard to develop solutions to problems of water scarcity. She leads Action for Water Equity, which develops water solutions for water insecure communities in the United States. Again, she also has an extraordinary record of scholarly achievement with over 15,000 citations. And topping all of this and numerous other awards, Dr. Wudich was chosen in 2023 as a MacArthur Fellow by the MacArthur Foundation Award. So these are,
She
as you can
started at
see,
ASU as a postdoc.
and she started as ASU as a postdoc, and she's truly, again, as all 3 of them, contributes on all levels, and we're very, very proud to present these 3 to you today and ask for your approval.
Thank you, Provost Gonzalez. Are there any questions or comments?
I just want to add, I appreciate the length and the detail of this particular recognition, because the Regents, this is a very honorific thing, and we take it very seriously. I just want to remind the Regents that this level of faculty was considered impossible to attract, maintain, and cultivate at a university that had maintained our admission standards and grew to our scale. These 3 faculty members, I know each of them personally, I'm not involved in the selection process, only the approval process, are at ASU because of our undergraduate mission, and they're able to do these things in addition to that. And so this is these 3 individuals I happen to know personally. And so Jim came from Cornell, and Amber came as a postdoc, and Hao Yan came as an assistant professor from NYU right out of his graduate program. And so these 3 faculty members have done tremendous things in an environment that's different than many other research universities.
Thank you, and congratulations to these 3 new faculty members getting the award. So if there's no questions on, Regent Penley?
Thank you, Chair Mata. Just a comment. These are 3 really great professors. It's evident from the work here. Professor Hao Yan, anybody who can publish in Nature and Science consistently, or even occasionally, is really someone I admire. A person like Professor Bell, we need so much the communication of what science does and the meaning of science and the research that we do. His recognition with the Carl Sagan Award really is exceptional in terms of what we need with science these days, as we strive to help people understand what scientists do. And finally, Professor Wudich, I didn't know she was a postdoc here, but that's exceptional. But her focus on what appears to be working class families, people who are disadvantaged. So much of the world faces water scarcity, despite what we see often in the United States and Europe. And so for her to focus on that in places in Africa, Latin America, everywhere, is really something of great value to the people of this world. So really wonderful people, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, Regent Penley. Any other comment? Seeing none, thank you, Nancy. I move the board approve Arizona State University request for appointment of Regents professors as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oppose? Any abstention? The motion carries. Fellow Regents, I'm excited to introduce the next presentation that highlights a new initiative that I believe holds immense potential, not only for our universities, but also for our state and our nation. It has been my honor to lead the board's efforts as we explore strategic partnerships between Arizona's public university and the military and DoD and defense industries. From my personal experience building a career in this sector, I have seen the transformative potential of academia and defense collaboration. It is my hope that we can further drive innovation and enhance our national defense by deepening our working relationship with our defense partners through collaborative research and development projects. As we heard, as the Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee led by Regent Pacheco, earlier this month, the intersection of academia and defense has been reshaping America's defense landscape for the past century. The Department of Defense has long recognized the extraordinary potential of universities to drive technological innovation and to address some of the most pressing challenges facing our nation. This includes 3 public universities, which is Arizona State University, Northern Arizona University, and University of Arizona. Each has demonstrated they are not only hubs of learning, but incubators of critical, high-stake research that support our national security and global competitiveness. Arizona ranks 8th nationally in defense spending, presenting more opportunities for our institution. We're witnessing the growing importance of these types of collaborations and their critical impact in areas such as cybersecurity, aerospace, artificial intelligence, even mining, to combat the unseen emerging threats. These are very high technology that will shape the future of defense, and our universities are well positioned to be at the heart of this innovation. Today, the university's Vice President of Research will provide an update to the board on highlights of the university's existing defense and military-related programs, including research, collaborations, and federal contracts, and any other future opportunities that might come to the table. I'm also pleased to present to the board a report that provides an impressive overview of the university's defense-related research and programs, and we will continue getting the update. I don't know if everybody have it, but you have it on, the regions have it on top, on next to you. I would also like to highlight the board's plans to hire a defense initiatives advisor to help expand our collaboration across the university system with Arizona military installations and the defense sector. We have laid the groundwork for further engagement between our universities and the military and defense sector. I look forward to what lies ahead and to learning more during today's presentation. With that, I will turn this over to our presenters, and I think I will start with Sally Morton. We have also Tomas, and I think we have, where's, he's in the Zoom? Jason is on the Zoom, okay. And Jason from NAU, or VPR, so he will be joining. And we have Nadia as well, who's here. Thank you. Yes. Tomas, you only been here for a week and now you're already presenting us. Yeah. Thank you. So the floor is yours.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, you can start, and among the 3 of you, and including Nadia, you can, as a panel, express all the information that you want to present to us.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Sally Morton, Executive Vice President of Knowledge Enterprise at ASU. And first, I'd like to welcome my new research colleague, Tomas, here to the University of Arizona as Senior Vice President of Research and Innovation. We've already had a wonderful conversation today about all our universities do together now and what we might do together in the future. So let me turn now to the topic at hand. National security challenges are dynamic, they're complex, and they require a focus on mission and outputs. ASU, our sister universities, and Arizona are uniquely positioned to support the Department of Defense and other federal security agency goals around research, innovation, and education. Universities play a critical role in our country's national security ecosystem, and it is essential that we continue to do so. ASU is committed to leveraging our unique capabilities and partnerships to contribute, and this work ranges from maintaining technological superiority over adversaries. For example, our current obligated Department of Defense portfolio at ASU is $262 million. We also provide novel educational experiences for current military personnel. As an example, ASU has partnerships with the Air Force, Navy, and Space Force on education for current military personnel. We develop a robust pipeline for future national security workforce. ASU has dedicated internship programs with defense industry employers like the Army Corps of Engineers. We also develop a robust pipeline for future national security workforce. ASU has dedicated internship programs. In addition, this also encompasses key technological areas like microelectronics, and all three universities contribute on this issue, as well as partner together and with our state, particularly via the Arizona Commerce Authority. We also ensure that veterans successfully transition to civilian life. Currently, ASU's Pat Tillman Center supports over 18,000 veterans and the dependents of veterans as currently enrolled students. Today, many of the foremost national security challenges are centered around geopolitical competition for global leadership and influence. There are a number of domains. First of all, technology, not only who can develop new capabilities, but who will set the standards and norms for those capabilities like artificial intelligence. Supply chain, who has access to critical minerals, for example. The information ecosystem, how can we better defend our allies and our own ecosystem from cybersecurity attacks? ASU is committed to leveraging our unique capabilities to drive progress on national security challenges. And our work is not only focused on federal agencies in Washington, but we also partner with the Arizona military installations. For example, we've partnered with Luke Air Force Base to develop a new prototype training device for pilots. We currently partner with Fort Huachuca regularly, including developing tailored training programs for new warrant officers on artificial intelligence. ASU's impact on national security has expanded rapidly over the last several years. Much of that growth has been driven by our Global Security Initiative, which is led by my colleague, Dr. Nadia Bliss, and she'll now share a few more remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. Thank you, Regents. Appreciate being here with you to follow up on our discussions on November 7th. As Dr. Morton mentioned, we have a nearly $300 million portfolio of DoD and Department of Homeland Security research. We anticipate that our annual expenditures will nearly triple in the last 7 years, which will position us in the top 5% of universities working with the Department of Defense. Why? That's a good question to ask. One of the things that I want to just emphasize is we have technical strength that are aligned with national security needs. When I say technical strength, I mean broadly, including social sciences, humanities, policy, and very importantly, interdisciplinary research. We also have deep focus on execution and focus on mission support. We take that responsibility very seriously, and durable long-term partnerships, both with local Arizona installations and nationally with federal agencies and relevant industry partners. I want to highlight a couple of examples of ASU DoD successes just in the last few months. Microelectronics Commons has selected 5 projects to strengthen U.S. chip-making capability and decrease our reliance on foreign sources of microelectronics. That's about a $30 million effort for all 5 projects. ASU has recently been selected to provide research support to the Department of Defense Irregular Warfare Center. This is a truly interdisciplinary effort with technologists, political scientists, lawyers, and others engaging both here in Arizona and across the nation. That's a $24 million effort over 5 years. ASU team made up of faculty and students. Students are engaged in research at ASU as well, supporting our nation's security. The team was a finalist in the DARPA Artificial Intelligence Cyber Challenge. This was a national competition that DARPA led for teams developing new artificial intelligence-powered cybersecurity systems. These achievements don't happen in a vacuum. We have prioritized our national security engagements, and we have developed innovative models to drive those engagements that have contributed to the growth. I'd also like to mention that we have broad support for contracting vehicles ranging from grants, cooperative agreements, other transactional authorities, and of course, contracts. Center of gravity for this work is science and technology research. Again, science and technology broadly, not just limited to STEM. This is where DoD focuses majority of its funding. More than 90% of that portfolio is in that research, but research and education are not at all siloed. In fact, they're very closely tied. Cybersecurity is a really good example. For example, faculty travel to DC to train Department of Defense personnel as we do work closely with our local installations such as Fort Huachuca. This is also an area where there is lots of opportunities to partner. At the moment, ASU and U of A are already working together on areas around wireless communication and health-related research, and with Northern Arizona University on biotech and decision-making. And additionally, as Dr. Morton mentioned, U of A is a member of Swap Hub, where again, both students and faculty are engaged. Across the university, we have close to 200 faculty working on Department of Defense research, and more than 200 students are engaged in research. That's in addition to thousands of students that are involved in educational initiatives.
Thank you, Nadia and Sally. I would like to introduce Tomas, but Tomas, before you start talking, I would like to ask you to give a little bit background of yourself doing this kind of work previously, and I know it's very long, but if you can give us some of the key areas that you can, that you focus on, how this can expand through, your work here at the University of Arizona and working together with NAU and ASU. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rich and Mata. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure and really an honor to be here with all of you this afternoon. It has been 8 days. I'm still counting days. I haven't gotten to weeks yet. But it has been a fantastic 8 days. The welcome, the reception from everybody here in Tucson and across the state has been fantastic. So I'm delighted to be here. My family is delighted to be moving to Tucson later in December. And we're really looking forward what might be, in the future. This is a great state, and, as I say, we're honored to be here. I do have a long 30-year background in national security. The bulk of my career, let's say the first 24 years of my career, I don't see myself retiring very soon, was at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Lawrence Livermore is a nuclear weapons lab. It's a national security laboratory run by the Department of Energy. So I've been working in national security since my very early days. I started there as a postdoc. I rose to become the Deputy Director for Science and Technology and the Chief Research Officer of the laboratory, and work across many, many national security programs during all those years, led many initiatives in that space. But since then, I have always been closely tied to the national security and defense enterprise at Purdue University with President Gary Mella. We had a big effort around national security and defense, including classified work on hypersonics and other areas. And at the University of Oklahoma, the last few years, we also launched a very significant Aerospace and Defense Innovation Institute, very closely tied to the military installations in Oklahoma and some of the key missions of the Air Force Sustainment Center, Fort Sill with the Army and others. And so this has been my world. At present, I actually am a member of the Defense Science Board in the Pentagon. I support the Office of the Secretary of Defense. The DSB is an organization that was founded after World War II. There's about 40 members that advise the Secretary and the senior staff in OSD around science and technology issues and threats from our adversaries, and how the department might position itself to best respond to the current threats. So in that role, as a special government employee, I participate in many studies around this that really reflect on the sort of challenges that we can tackle together as a group of universities, as a state, and that we need to tackle as a nation. But let me say that I'm really truly delighted that the board has such an interest in our national security. I think it is a key imperative for us. I believe strongly that state universities in this country have an imperative and a duty to help solve the great challenges that we face in this very dangerous world that we live in today. We live in a dangerous neighborhood, there's no question about it. And, to support our freedoms, our liberties that we so dearly care about, we need all of us to contribute to the solutions that are going to keep us safe and secure from our adversaries. So, to be able to develop those new technologies, to translate those new technologies that will help our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, our Marines, our coasties, and our guardians is really truly an imperative for us. So again, thank you for your support of these initiatives. The University of Arizona, and I, having been here a few days, I won't go into a lot of details as to, where everything is at. But what I can tell you is that the University of Arizona is ready to meet the challenges that we face. We have tremendous scientific capabilities and strengths, not only in the STEM disciplines, as my colleagues mentioned, but also across the social sciences, in public policy, in the humanities, that when all converge together, can really create solutions that meet the needs of our military to fight the battle that we're in. Many of those include areas like hypersonics, for example. Hypersonics is critical to where we live today, the world that we live in. Our adversaries developing these capabilities at exponential speeds, with tremendous capabilities that we need to be able, not just to match, but to exceed. We need to be able to defend against hypersonic vehicles coming at us. We need to be able to defend against unmanned aerial systems, counter UAS. We need to develop the technologies that will allow us to protect ourselves and to protect our allies from attack by our adversaries. So we have a strong focus here at this university on hypersonics. We have testing facilities for hypersonic vehicles that are truly among the best in the nation in an academic institution. We participate in the University Hypersonics Consortium, along with many other universities, and we're really among the leaders in the nation in the critical space of hypersonics. We're also doing a lot of work on quantum networking and integrated photonics, advanced technologies that are really going to help us, for example, navigate in GPS-denied environments with precision navigation and timing, things that are absolutely critical to where the battle and how the battle is going to be fought in the future. The battle of the future is going to be fought in space, and it's going to be fought at the speed of light. It's not at the speed of missiles, it's at the speed of light, because everybody's going to be happening through data. So it's that integration of data, of space, where this university has unique strengths in space science, and quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, photonics, microelectronics, where the solutions to our current challenges are going to come from. So as I said, the University of Arizona is extremely well positioned, already doing very significant work with the Department of Defense and the intelligence community across these areas, including cybersecurity, for example, as well, as was mentioned by my colleagues. And I think that when we all come together across the universities here in the state, with you, with the support of the board and the support of the state, the support of our congressional delegation, we can really make the state of Arizona really the foremost state in supporting the needs of our military going forward through our innovation, through our knowledge discovery, through our translation of those technologies into solutions that get into the hands of our soldiers out in the battlefield. So I'm really looking forward. I think the future for us is unbounded. I think there's tremendous opportunity for academic institutions to be able to provide these solutions to the DoD and to the Department of Homeland Security and the intelligence community. We do have also, and I think it's worth mentioning, a tremendous capability in terms of providing access to secure facilities for research. And I think, as I was talking with my colleague Sally Morton earlier today, this is a capability that is very unique at the University of Arizona. I don't want to go into the details of everything around this so-called University of Arizona Applied Research Corporation facility, but I think it's a capability that can serve the needs of all our colleagues here in the state, not just for the University of Arizona, but I think it's a place where we can come together and actually carry out and have the conversations with our sponsors at the level that is required to truly understand the needs and carry our work together that will be really responsive to those needs. So I look forward to us being able to collaborate in that space in those areas. So with that, I'll pass it back to Chairman Mata. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Tomas. So I would like to invite Jason Walter, who is on Zoom, to provide his briefing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chairman Mata, and to the Regents for initiating this important conversation. I'd also like to say welcome to Tomas. Welcome to Arizona. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and continuing some of this discussion. So I'm really excited to talk about some of the work at NAU and fields of study that are critical to national defense and highlight some of the partnerships we have with the U.S. military in the research arena. NAU has been very intentional in growing our research relationships with a variety of military partners in recognition of the unique skills and capacities that our faculty bring to important security issues. The current value of our grant and contract portfolio with the defense sponsors is in excess of $40 million and is showing very strong year-over-year growth. In a moment, I will highlight some of the largest areas of research partnership that we have with the Department of Defense, and also several additional high-impact collaborations that we have initiated that demonstrate the effective and diverse ways that NAU is partnering with the military. But I'd also like to first just recognize the importance of Regent Penley's comment earlier on the role of NAU students in the research that we do. Even though much of this research that's military related is highly sensitive, very important, it is highly student engaged at the university. And this is something that I think we offer as a state. I was so pleased to hear that comment from ASU as well, and I know it's true at U of A. But we are really preparing our students to contribute after their graduation with absolutely unparalleled experience. So let me get into a little bit of what we do here at NAU. I'll highlight a handful of different areas. So first, we conduct cutting-edge work on biosurveillance and vaccine development related to biological threats. This work is largely housed within NAU's Pathogen and Microbiome Institute. We have more than $13 million in active contracts with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency that utilize NAU's deep experience in pathogen genomics and our unique research facilities that include our BSL-3 laboratory and our animal research BSL-3 laboratory. The second area of work at NAU is our work in supply chain protection and prediction. We are the leader on a $7 million effort funded by the Department of Defense that uses open source intelligence to identify vulnerabilities in global supply chains. There are important applications of this technology to both Homeland Defense and many other aspects of national security. A third area of our work is in cybersecurity and communications. We are the leader on over $4 million in contracts related to information securities with applications that are pertinent to electronic communications with drones and other remote sensing instrumentation. We're pioneering new methods of cryptography that allow secure communications in highly contested environments of the sorts that we see on the news every day in the Ukraine and in Gaza. Another area of our work is in the ecological sciences. We study invasive species, aid with biological inventories, and help with wildland fire management on military installations here in Arizona and beyond. We have over $1.3 million in existing contracts that are based on NAU's expertise in ecological and forest science that address important land management issues. An example of this work is a partnership with Fort Huachuca to develop fuel treatment strategies for the high elevation forests above Sierra Vista. Beyond those research collaborations, we have recently formalized 2 educational partnership agreements, one with the Yuma Proving Ground and one with the Geospatial Research Labs. These partnership agreements highlight the way that we integrate both research and student-focused activities. These open up internship opportunities for our students with military partners. They create opportunities for faculty engagement and access to Army facilities and instruments, and finally pave the way for future research collaborations. Another area of our work that I'll highlight is in the area of active training for active duty soldiers. A program that we recently initiated this summer via contract with the Army was to provide training in chemistry techniques that are useful to soldiers who have roles in chemical and biological threat assessment. NAU was approached by the Army for this training because of the potential to scale it up to more complex training topics that make use of our expertise in biological threats and make use of the methods that we can offer training in our BSL-3 laboratory environment. We are looking forward to growing additional research and development programs in partnership with diverse military partners. We're anticipating a number of new awards in the coming months and years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any comments or questions for our presenters? Well, you guys did a fabulous presentation. There's no questions. Well, thank you so much to our 3 VPRs and to Nadia for this presentation, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you. So during the June 6, 2024 Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee, the Regents have had the opportunity to hear from Brett Yorkman, the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference that ASU and U of A participate in, and discuss issues shaping the future of college sports and the strategic implications for the state's public universities. NAU participates in the Big Sky Conference, and today we have Tom Witrisil, the commissioner of the Big Sky Conference, here to present the differences between football championship subdivision and football ball subdivision athletic departments, their financial models and measures of success, the changing landscape of collegiate athletics, and discuss strategic implications for NAU. Welcome, Commissioner Witrisil. Thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. This is the fun and entertainment portion of the meeting. We're going to talk about sports for a little while. So thank you very much. I prepared a very short 84-page slideshow. I'm not going to share that. So I have 6 or 7 slides. And so just so I know, does this come up on your screen, or is it only on there that it comes up? It's only on there. Okay, great. All right. So we'll move through this quickly, but if there's any questions, please feel free to stop me, and then I'll have time certainly for Q&A at the end. It's a crazy time in college athletics, and those of you that are involved in it on a daily basis, as I see the 3 university presidents sitting around here, know that. And there's a lot of disruption. There's an amount of money that's flowing into the system and out of the system that is, untenable. And so it puts everybody in some difficult situations at every institution. We're not immune to that in the Big Sky. And so I'm here to talk first about the Big Sky Conference. We'll talk a little bit about some global stuff within the NCAA, and then NAU's place, we believe in that. So I'll just move through this pretty quick. There's the first slide. Just to give you a little quick background on myself, I've been here 6 years at the Big Sky Conference. Before that, I ran a division of Learfield Sports and the college athletics multimedia rights. I was a FBS athletic director for 6 years at the University of Akron in Ohio, and before that worked at 2 Big Ten institutions. So I've seen college athletics from all different sides in my 30-plus year career, and has led me here to be the commissioner of the Big Sky, and very proud of the Big Sky. Just to share with the Big Sky, you see a map up there. We're in 8 states. We've been around since 1963. 5 of our members still remain from there. NAU joined in 1970. As I said today, we have 10 full-time members, 2 football affiliates. In California, UC Davis and Cal Poly only play football in the Big Sky. The rest are all full-time members located in 8 states. My headquarters are in Salt Lake City, just north of downtown, not far from Weber State University. So if you're in Utah, stop by and say hello. So let's talk a little bit about national stuff that's happening related to the Big Sky. We have a media partnership with ESPN and with Scripps that broadcasts our games, primarily over ESPN+. But from an FCS football perspective, we have the largest TV contract from a financial perspective and the most linear broadcast. What that means is if it's Saturday night and you're flipping around the TV, you might see some Big Sky football on ESPN2 or ESPNU. And we're very fortunate to have national recognition there. Our team does a great job from a social media standpoint. We've grown this tremendously. That's where our fans are. And so within the last year, you can see 70 million social media impressions on Big Sky content. NAU scores a touchdown, they clip it, they post it, the Big Sky reposts it and reposts it and reposts it, and that's how you get those types of things. The other number I want to bring your attention next is something that we've kind of addressed head on, and that's sports gambling. And so when you look at those dollar figures, people wonder about how important is Big Sky Sports to the global ecosystem for sports gambling. That's how much was bet on those 2 sports in the last year. $80 million in football, $374 million on Big Sky basketball. Now, we work with a company out of Vegas that tracks this, and the reason we have that contract is we need to know to make sure that there is ethical, fair play around the conference. And if a sports line moves by 4 to 6, points, the kickoff of a football game, something's going on. And this company, many conferences contract with them, tracks that sort of thing. So as you can see, it's very important. Why are the numbers so high? Geographics. If you're a bettor and you've lost all your East Coast and Midwest games and you need to get some money back, you're betting those late night games. Hello, Big Sky. right? So that's how it plays out. So I use Raise the Flag here because let's talk about the success from NAU's perspective. 5 times in the last 21 years, they've won the President's Cup. There's a picture of myself and Mike Marlowe, the AD. That was 2 years ago. And the President's Cup is a combination of academics and athletics. It's not just winning on the court or on the field. It's academics as well. And so you can feel some pride about NAU's success there. As far as the depth and of their athletic programs, 12 Big Sky championships in 14 sports in the last 6 years. That's a photo of their women's soccer team taken a couple years ago when they won the conference championship in soccer. Broad-based athletic programs are really important. And I think everyone's very familiar with their cross-country success. 6 national champions in 8 years. That's unheard of in pretty much any sport. And so very proud of that. And this Saturday, coming up in 48 hours, the women's team has a decent shot to win their first ever national title. The men, I'm sure, will finish in the top 5 to 7 probably, but the women are one of 3 schools who will win a champion. So to think about that in terms of how hard it is to win a national championship, to have that here in our conference and at NAU is very special. So show me the money. Let's talk about athletics revenue. And I'm putting up this grid here with some colors because I think it's important to notice the way the 3 Division I athletic programs are funded in the state of Arizona is very different. So you'll see at the top there, basically it's yellow is money that comes from the school. The navy blue, which looks black, but it's navy blue, trust me, is money that the schools generate. So this is very typical for the 130 FCS institutions around the country, what NAU has. Roughly 80% of the money comes from institutional funds. Could be student fees, could be from the government, could be other revenue sources that the school uses to support athletics. At the U of A and ASU, it's different. The athletic department is generating the majority of their funds. You can see this is taken of FY23 data. That's what you see for Arizona State is very typical for the FBS, specifically the P4 programs that those 2 represent. That's the typical model, very different from FCS. And as some of you heard me say earlier, you know, the institutional investment that goes into FCS programs, that is a marketing expense. That is NAU's way of saying we're so proud of the Lumberjacks and what athletics does for us. We're going to invest our money into that, just like they do for an academic program or for any initiative. That's the funding and the model that our programs across the country, and specifically the 10 members of the Big Sky, that's how the funding models are put together. So I do that just to illustrate that there are differences. Very differences that not just how they're funded, but how the presidents have to manage those budgets internally. Very, very different amongst the different institutions. Couple left and then we're done. So there's a lot happening in the space right now. Everybody is familiar with name, image, and likeness. So there's a company out there that tracks these expenses. And so just to illustrate some of the challenges here. At the FCS level, where NAU is, the average NIL for a football program is $150,000. In the Big 12, the average is $4.5 million. All right, so what does that mean? That means that NAU is trying really hard to get a lot of money for their football NIL. Not having a lot of success for obvious reasons, right? They're not on national TV. There's not a daily battle to try to come up with money to get to the players. That doesn't happen at the Big Sky. I can tell you it happens in the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the ACC. That's the challenge they're faced with. In basketball, at this level, it's about $100,000. And for the average for the Big 12 programs, $3.5 million. So when you think about the challenges for the athletic departments, the presidents, the coaches, to generate that amount of revenue, to stay at the top, that's really difficult. That's quite a challenge. I don't envy that position for those athletic directors that have to work with their coaches to come up with that type of money. Again, that's the average based upon this company that works with nearly 50 collectives and 3 of our institutions. So I just thought that was kind of an eye-opening difference there. So let's talk about the House settlement. I think everyone's familiar with this. There's 2 parts to this settlement. One is a look back, damages paid to past student athletes. So this is where it puts schools like the Big Sky in a bind. So we are getting money deducted from our NCAA distributions to go towards former student athletes at the P4 level. Let me put it in Arizona terms for you. So NAU's losing money that's going to go to DeAndre Ayton, played basketball at Arizona, and Brandon Ayuk, who played football at Arizona State. They're going to get checks out of this, and good for them. I think that's great. What we have a problem with is the amount of money that our schools who didn't have those student athletes have to pay. So we're frustrated by that. The second part of the House settlement is the guaranteed revenue sharing that all P4 schools have to have starting this next year. And that's $20.5 million starting next year. So there's a lot of challenges within this. As I said, our distributions are being cut. There's NAU's cut, $315,000 approximately per year for the next 10 years. So that hurts the budget at NAU. That's a challenge because they were counting on that money. And so now they need to find alternative solutions to either put revenue into different places or things get cut. Hopefully it's not programs, but coaches get cut, scholarships get cut. And then quickly here, looking at the future, our goals are to compete at the highest level of Division I while being financially responsible. We still feel like we're doing the true college athletics. It's not about paying the players as much. It's about trying to get them to graduate and be a point of pride for the local institutions and their community. We know who we are at our level. We're not trying to be something we'll never be. Our schools are not running off to FBS and not looking to spend that type of money. I think it's great that others are able to do that, and that's awesome. That's great for two institutions in this state. For NAU, I think we're very proud of that. And I think NAU is very positioned for a successful run here. Football is very important in the Big Sky. If you win the Big Sky in football, you have a good chance to be competitive for a national championship. And I think NAU is positioned well to do that. If they win on Saturday, I think they got a good shot to make the playoffs. That'll be really exciting. And so that's it with the questions. I also want to let you know this is personal for me. My son Jack is a redshirt sophomore basketball player at NAU, and that's him hanging on the rim right there. So I thought I'd end with that. Happy to take any questions.
How did he get up there?
Thank you, Commissioner. There's any questions or comments from the regions?
Did he jump up there?
I cannot. He's 6'8", so he can easily get there. I'm nowhere near there. So.
Chairman, just quickly, you touch on one aspect of the changing landscape in college athletics. Could you give your opinion on the portal and the ability, as you see it, for student athletes to once, twice, thrice, just kind of move on for whatever reason they desire, and how that maybe is affecting not only your conferences, schools, and their programs, either to the positive or the negative, but just kind of what you would see or would like to do with the portal going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, the portal has been something that in the past was looked at as, you know, it's very slim areas that it affects, right? And now it's affected every institution and every athletic program. I'm personally not a fan of, you know, basically unlimited free agency. The challenge we have is all of us can leave our jobs tomorrow and go take another job. And that's the way the student athletes look at it. And legally, we've lost every discussion about that topic around college athletics because there are no ability for any school. There's an ability to sign a contract that's legally bindable for a student athlete to have to stay there. And so that's a real challenge for all of us because what we were set up on, what college athletics was built on, was to bring in these young people, these 18-year-olds, and we all remember when we were 18, right? I mean, we had all the answers and that, but you know, and then you through some tough love in athletics, you grow and you become a different person and you leave as an adult when you're 22, 23 years old. Now, the minute there's some adversity, the student athletes just pick up and leave. And that's really disappointing. That's why you see so many really good coaches around the country, big name coaches, getting out of the business because they can't affect the young people's lives the way they used to. There's no easy answer because, you know, ultimately, I'm a believer, this is just my opinion, this is not the Big Sky's opinion. I'm a believer that ultimately we're going to have some type of employment status of certain student athletes because we're going to need to have some way to control whether it be the portal or the amount of money that's being paid in the system. Because right now, You know, and I'm just only going to pick on ASU. I'm not going to, but because they have a really good football year this year, and so there's going to be a thirst for money to flow into that football program to not only keep their best players, but pay new players to come in, and no matter how much money Coach Dillingham gets next year, he's going to want more money the next year because he's going to need it, because there's no guardrails around this at all right now. So it is truly the Wild West. And so somehow we need to figure out a way, and hopefully it's through some type of collective bargaining agreement at some point, that we can address the financial situation of the payments to players and also the transfer portal. With the House settlement, some of the things we'll be able to do is enter into some contracts with student athletes where we're guaranteeing them revenue. And then in return, they have to stay, or maybe they have to pay that back. So we'll be able to do some contractual stuff there, but I believe that's going to get challenged in courts pretty quickly. There's no easy way forward in this right now, and that's what makes it so difficult and is causing these incredibly, as I said, choppy waters around college athletics. It makes it very difficult, and we feel it at our level. At the P4 level, it's substantially greater.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to take a short break and return in 5 minutes. We're going to have a picture with Commissioner Wistricel with all the regions, so we're going to meet at the Catalina room. Thank you. So.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will move on the University Governance and Operations Committee. Items 6, 7, and 8. Regent Goodyear, as committee chair, would you please present these items?
Thank you, Chair Mata. At this time, I'll provide a report on our November 7th meeting. We started with an update regarding general education critical thinking assessment. Andrew Comrie, ABOR's Chief Academic Officer, Emily Manoni, Tri-University Assessment Chair from NAU, presented an overview of the three universities' general education critical thinking assessment effort. The committee received a package of proposed academic programs for Arizona State University, presented by Provost Nancy Gonzalez. In addition, there was a discussion pertaining to the university system enrollment data for fall 2024, presented by George Raudenbush, ABOR's Chief Analytics Officer. And finally, the committee received a request from the board office to review and forward to the board on first reading the proposed revisions to board policies 4-323, 4-405, and 4-406. The next item is a request from the board office to approve an amendment to the cash balance plan and to delegate responsibilities. Brad Kendricks from ABOR staff will present this item. Brad?
Good afternoon, Regent Goodyear, Chair Mata, regents and presidents. So item 7 is related to the cash balance pension plan. So the board office administers this plan to provide retirement benefits for certain university system employees. And the plan periodically needs to be revised based on the advice of tax counsel and other technical changes. So the proposed amendment before you today updates some outdated terminology per the advice of tax counsel. It updates the pay-based credits to conform with current employment contracts, and it updates administrative delegations in response to staff changes at the board office. So I'll stop there for any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for Brad on this issue? This is an action item. It requires a vote.
Thank you. So you want to call for the motion?
Sure. I move that the board approve the 10th Amendment to the cash balance pension plan and the resolution delegating the board authority to approve or disapprove disbursements from the cash balance pension plan as described in the executive summary.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries.
Good work, Brad.
Thank you, sir.
The power.
The power of the pen. Next up is the fall university financial update. Brad will present this item, and we will invite CFOs Bjorn Flugstad, Dr. Morgan Olson, and John Arnold to join us for the discussion. Brad?
Thank you, Chair Mata, regents and presidents. we will get started with some slides. Welcome guests. And this is the magic tool I've been waiting for. All right, so today we're going to go through the fall financial update, which provides some highlights around the university's fiscal health, some of those key metrics, and really is a continuation of our last conversation about some of the financial affairs of the universities. So just by way of a recap, we have a sort of recurring annual review cycle that covers a variety of updates to the board, as well as substantive check-ins based on what's happening in the business process, the business cycle at the time. So our fiscal year runs July through June, and starting in the early part of the year, we're kind of closing out the previous fiscal year, starting a new fiscal year. And then as the year progresses, we provide quarterly financial updates to the board about what's going on while beginning to discuss some of the operational health issues and the pieces that we are projecting for the future year budget planning. So part of the reason I mention this is that board policy does specifically outline the things that the board needs to see periodically. That includes reconciliations related to budget. That includes updated projections each quarter about how the university's finances are going to look for the year, including comparisons of those projections against budget and playing that out as to how it is expected to impact the university's financial net position at the end of the year and the university's cash liquidity. So as we talk about this cycle and all the different pieces that happen, you will recall that the last time we had a substantive discussion about this was in June when we were looking at the budget proposals from the universities and their forecasts at that time. So a number of things have happened since our spring and summer conversations, and that means that we've closed out this year and we have the beginning of a new year to look at. So when you heard from the universities about their financial status in June, we were looking at revenue, expenditure, and cash balance forecasts based on the third financial quarter of the year that we were in. So they were 75% way through the year, projecting where they were going to be and what that would mean for the next year. Also, budget plans were built based on the university's projected needs, but it included things like the state budget as expressed by the governor in January, not what was actually happening in the legislature at the time, and enrollment forecasts for an enrollment cycle that had really just begun in the spring. So these are loose ideas of where the universities are headed based on obviously all of their expert knowledge and data, but we're not yet set in stone. Where we are in November is that in June, appropriations were finalized. In August, we closed the fourth quarter of the university's financial books, so had preliminary cash numbers and financial results from the full fiscal year. In September, we have our official census of fall enrollment, so rather than enrollment projections, now we actually know how the enrollment cycle looks for the year, or for the fall, which is an excellent indicator of what it's going to look like for the full year. In October, we have our official audited financial statements from the university, so we have a complete view of the prior year's financial activity. And then in November, we issue a report on the first quarter of the current year. So we have a good idea of what expenses and revenues look like in practice with our current assumptions. So that said, what we're trying to do in this report out to the board is to kind of bridge that gap from those original budget estimates in the summer to where we actually are mid-year with hopefully a much clearer view of where this fiscal year should end based on what we currently know. So we're going to talk about this in a couple of pieces. One of those is revenue. So as we think about university revenues, there's lots of different sources, and you hear about the successes and the projects in all of those areas. For purposes of today's discussion, I'm going to really group expenses or revenues into 4 separate areas based on the forces that drive them. So this doesn't include every revenue that the university gets, but I think it gives us a flavor of some of the things that we like to monitor. So one of those is state appropriations. So those are dollars coming from our legislature. They are driven primarily by projects and the interests of the legislature and our relationships therein. We have enrollment-driven revenue, so that's things like tuition and fees that are driven by the number of students that choose to participate in the universities, the number of credits they take, what their financial background is, the intensity of their course load, all of the different demand variables related to teaching and learning on campus. Research, on the other hand, is driven by the university's infrastructure and success in achieving or receiving contracts and grants and other things in the research space, which isn't directly tied to that demand. And then we have auxiliary business revenue, which are those kind of side businesses that the universities run. Many of these are correlated with enrollment, things like dining plan participation and housing on campus, but they are driven by that participation rate and the choices that students make more so than just being a student or not being a student. They also are subject to a lot more market forces as it relates to what other housing products and other dining products look like. Then we'll move into expenses. Really, with expenses, we're thinking about two big forces there. One of them is related to increase in current costs, like it generally just becomes more expensive to do what we're doing, while the other piece is that the universities are making decisions every day about what's important, what priorities are, and therefore how much it's going to cost to pursue those things within the available resources. And then again, we will play that out to its logical conclusion, which is what does that mean for the financial standing of the university at year end, and what does that mean for the amount of cash liquidity that's on hand in order to facilitate all this activity. So I'll try to walk through all of these at a high level. Feel free to interrupt with any questions, and then we'll discuss a little bit more about what it means. So the first bucket that we had talked about is revenue from state appropriations. And there's lots of different ways to look at it, but this is one of the more striking ones, which is to look at what state general fund support looks like for the university system as a percent of total general fund appropriations. And what you can see is that the amount of state revenue that is dedicated to the universities is disappeared from me. Good day, Dr. Olson. Did I do that?
I think Dr. Olson,
you brought Morgan in.
Yeah.
There we go.
Bye-bye, Morgan.
Slide to Morgan.
We have acknowledged Morgan's
Very
presence.
nice.
Good day, sir. So what we can see is that while the raw dollar amount that's going into the universities has continued to increase, it is a smaller and smaller piece of the state investment. And that is sort of a useful backdrop to the reality of what this year's final legislative cycle looked like, which is that all of the initiatives that were funded in FY24 were backed out of the state budget. There was luckily some of that money repurposed into our Healthy Tomorrows initiatives, but that still led to a $97 million reduction in sort of program-related revenue. The official bottom line from the state is a $62 million reduction because there were additional revenues in the form of technical changes, but those were additions to the budgets for formula-based things, not really legislative priority-based things. And how that plays out with each of our universities, what you can see here is we have base appropriations reductions at all of the schools, and then each of them backing out, but we're seeing reductions outside of those technical adjustments that range between $5 and $31 million, and that's before we include the impact of the $20 million reduction to the Arizona Promise Program, which is a direct pass-through to the universities for financial aid, and the $14 million reduction to the Arizona Teachers Academy, which again is a pass-through to the universities to subsidize that scholarship program. So with the backdrop of just a flat reduction in appropriations, we then move into an enrollment environment. Now at our committee or our UGO committee meeting back on November 7th, we did do a deeper dive into enrollment at the universities. And the bottom line of that conversation was that despite all of the pressures and uncertainty of FAFSA being a big one of those asterisks this year, the universities actually did really well. U of A had a growing class, ASU had a growing, everybody did a very good job navigating that environment. What we're doing in this analysis is looking at two things. One of them is how did what actually happened impact, or how did it compare to what we had estimated in the budgets? The second question is how does that end result, our current forecast, compare to 24? So the conclusion that I'll draw from this at a very high level is that all three universities projected and are currently continuing to project stronger enrollment financial results than in 24. So it is a slight to moderate positive upward arrow. However, I'll note that at least at NAU and U of A in this case, there was a little bit of overestimation in the budget about how positive the results would be based on
the actual applied things that happen, the actual students that signed up, what kind of modalities those students chose, the kind of financial need that the university or that the students had when coming to the universities. And just to kind of double underline the point about increasing financial need, all of the universities cited continued pressure in that space where students are coming with more need, with more eligibility for need. So just as one metric to kind of illustrate that point, at the bottom I have the scholarship allowances as a percentage of gross tuition and fees at each university. And those are all in the flat to growing environment, and they range from 24% at ASU to 35% at U of A and all the way to 51% at NAU. So it's showing that financial need of the students is continuing to be, and our financial aid policies are continuing to be primary drivers in the space of how much profitability, if you will, from net tuition that the universities are able to turn back into operations.
Just to be clear, as a matter of clarification, most of our financial aid is for merit. In our case. Not need.
So moving into
Just to be clear for Regents, I mean, financial aid is two factors in our institution. Merit aid, which is based on your academic performance somewhere else, and need-based aid. Some students, most students receive both to fill out their packages, but merit aid is also as important as financial aid in terms of need. I will say in the context of this, because these numbers can be misleading, if I might just interject this, and that merit aid is a difficult issue for us because of the expectation the universities are going to pay the tuition for high-performing students from Arizona high schools. So it's an area where we know that we could make changes, but we don't yet.
Thank you, President Crow.
The what?
Thank you. Thank you for that.
It's just a clarification when you look at these numbers. We're working very hard at ASU to focus financial aid on need.
If I can just make a clarification about the change from budget, the $38 million reduction is 100% an accounting issue and relates to UAGC. Speak up louder, louder. Okay.
Not quite that loud.
Not quite that loud. The $38.9 million reduction from budget is 100% an accounting issue relating to moving UAGC from a for-profit accounting status, or actually nonprofit, into government. And it has to do with how they account for Pell dollars. If you exclude UAGC, we're up about $18 million in NTR.
Continue, Brad.
So with that, moving to the next sort of general theme here, we were talking about sponsored research, which again is driven by other factors than just direct student enrollment. In these circumstances, we're looking at the same analysis. What's the change from budget? What's the change from the previous year? And in each of the cases, the budget is either neutral or positive. So our initial returns on research activity have been better than originally projected at the universities. As it relates to change from 24, again, we have strong growth at ASU and NAU. U of A does have a reduction, but it was due to both some technical timing issues and a known expiration of a large award. Did you have anything you wanted to? No. Okay. Sorry. Very good. So then moving on to auxiliary businesses, again, we see some pretty positive results, both in terms of moving or exceeding initial budget forecasts, as well as continuing to exceed what the previous year's activity had looked like. But even in places where we were, a little bit up or a little bit off, we're looking at within 1-2 percentage points. Like, these are not huge swings in most cases. So it continues to show that there's a reasonable amount of certainty in the budget estimates that we've been using. So that covers kind of revenue in a nutshell. The state is down, and several other places we're, mildly up in ways that help to offset a little bit. In the expense environment, that's the other side. That's how are we using the resources that we have, and what is the natural costs. So when we come into a budget year, there are all kinds of assumptions around what is personnel going to cost and what is turnover going to look like, what are the inflationary factors on our software and our services and our construction and everything else.
So based on the first, how the last year actually ended and then the first quarter of experience, all of the universities are projecting higher levels of spending than were originally forecast for the year. So each of the universities has cited a number of kind of top line things that go into that. A lot of them have to do with inflation in capital projects and major capital outlays. And then the other theme continues to be, at least at 2 universities, growth in personnel expenses and just some other kind of operational inflationary type factors. But again, the change from budget amounts are between 2 and 3%, not huge variations from what was anticipated. So what does that all mean? So there are other there are other revenues and expenditures besides the ones that we were looking at, but they give you a flavor of some of the big moving parts at the universities. So that then boils down to what the, addition or subtraction from the, millions of dollars of net position that each university has. So what we're seeing here is that across all 3 universities, it's fairly modest adjustments from what was anticipated in the budget. So in all of the circumstances, the universities anticipated a positive return for the year. Those returns in ASU's case are a little larger, in the other 2 universities' case is a little bit smaller. The one sort of piece that I'll, underline or draw out of this is that U of A is actually showing a positive change from 24, while the other 2 universities, while still positive, are not as positive as they had been in the previous operating year. And I'll leave it to the CFOs to comment on some of that, but it obviously ties back to some of those negative pressures that we have talked about in terms of rising costs and large reductions in revenue. So the last piece we'll look at is liquidity, and we have all had a lot of time talking about liquidity over the course of the last year, and we're happy to go through it again. But the real baseline is that we have a range of what the board deems as appropriate values for the amount of cash flowing through the system in order to mitigate potential financial risk due to not having enough cash on hand. So the way that is currently defined is 143 to 239 days. Those exact numbers float over time. The university's calculations also float over time because these numbers are a function of both the amount of unrestricted cash that the universities have available to them at year end, which is a point in time snapshot, as well as the expenditure base that the universities have. So that ratio is what derives this number. So we should normally expect modest to moderate fluctuations in that based on both the university's expenditure changes as well as what's actually going on with cash on hand and cash management. As you'll see here, ASU is basically flat in every capacity, NAU is basically flat in every capacity, and so is U of A. U of A has an uptick right now compared to what they expected at the end of last year. And in all of these circumstances, the feedback that we're getting is that the universities have a hold on how to manage this. And I can leave it to John to comment further as we talk about the university's plan to turn their number around over time. But it does appear to have stabilized kind of towards the bottom of what I hope it has stabilized towards the bottom of what appears to be a trough. Okay. So given all of that, with the chair's permission, I think we could use some of our time to just walk through a couple of other sort of thematic topics with the CFOs in order to get a little bit more depth in our commentary around what's actually going on at the universities in order to potentially spur and inform any questions that you might have. So if that's okay.
Proceed.
I'll go ahead. So the first prompt we want to talk about is really around strategic trade-offs. So as the universities have navigated this uncertainty, and as we've had reductions in state revenues, a lot of the conversation has been around, well, what does that mean to the universities? What does that mean in practice? So if any of you would like to chime in with some thoughts about the trade-offs or reallocations that your universities are evaluating or have had to make in order to accommodate this and still align with institutional priorities, I think that would be helpful. I choose Morgan.
Okay. Are you able to hear me all right?
Yes.
So as Brad indicated, they're are some adjustments that we're all having to make due to reduced state investment, and that's not a one-year phenomenon. That is a long-term phenomenon, decade plus. And so I think all of us are evolving our business models in reluctant recognition of that. We had another downward adjustment for fiscal year 2025. In our case, there are a number of things that I might just mention briefly in interest of time. One would be that we did decide to institute a tuition surcharge. That has a net impact for us, net of financial aid, because as we put the surcharge in place, we also anticipate increasing institutional aid, to support students where that's very important to their ability to continue. So net impact of about $20 million there, positive. Spring semester only at this point, and we'll see how things go. You probably noted the decision that has been made to cease operations at our Lake Havasu location next summer. That's also, again, an example of something that we've had to make an adjustment on to make sure that we stay within financial equilibrium. And then I would also mention we've scaled back the Arizona Teachers Academy, again, due to the reduction in state investment that Brad mentioned in his talk. And we've also had to manage the size of our merit pool for employees. And obviously, that's something that we do with a certain amount of consideration, because recruitment and retention of talent is critically important to us. So those are a couple of things that I would mention in fiscal year 2025.
I'll just add a context relative to the statement on the merit pool. ASU gives out no across the board raises, ever. Only merit raises. So just to be clear, so when we say merit pool, that's the amount of resource that we're putting into our budget for merit assignment of salary adjustments for pay performance.
Okay.
Do you do cost of living adjustments?
No. We have made adjustments to classifications of employees who were systematically underpaid. Rear track faculty members and others where the compensation as determined at the unit level was consistently too low, so we raised those salaries overall because it was just not appropriately designed.
Thank you. Regent Goodyear, NAU did, as part of a relook at the forecasted revenue and expense, take a look and consider a tuition surcharge for the spring. We estimated if we were to have gone forward with that, we would have generated about $2 to $3 million because we would have kept it within the $100 to $150 for the spring. We made the determination not to go forward with it for the spring, thinking about the total cost of attendance for spring for students who had already planned for the year. So it is a trade-off that we took that would have been a possible infusion of $2 to $3 million, but we made that decision. We'd also thought through what the potential ripple effects would be potentially for retention into the spring, as well as potentially retention into the spring semester. So that is an example of something that we did over the past month. I'd say just really thinking about positions and position control, thinking about when we fill positions that become open. That's something that we have a trade-off and a process that we've had in place for a number of years, and we continue to have a really good, robust review of all positions as they come up to make sure that they're aligned and needed to be backfilled. So I'd just add those couple of points.
Let's hear from, go ahead, President.
Just want to share with the board that as part of the strategy surrounding the positions, we recently realized that we needed to better support our enrollment management efforts, as well as some areas in academic affairs. And because of the controls that we have in place around the positions and the budget situation, we decided that the best way was to reallocate our talent. So we basically disbanded the university marketing division and reallocated all of the employees to different parts of the organization that we felt would bring us more direct benefit. And so we are looking at everything possible to make sure the talent is aligned with the most important work.
Thank you, President Cruz-Rivera. John?
Thank you, sir. And first, let me start by saying, number one, we're doing everything we can right now to raise the temperature in this room. So,
Rhetorically or physically?
Fine over here, John.
Calls and texts, and we're getting there. This first quarter, and thank you for giving us a chance to do this first quarter review. This first quarter has been an important time for the University of Arizona as we've transitioned from the temporary steps we put in place last spring into more of a permanent structure and operating basis. And a couple of examples of that and some of the trade-offs that we've had to look at. So last spring we had a hiring freeze in place. We lifted that hiring freeze on July 1st, but before we lifted it, we had each department put in a staffing plan that was within their established budget. And so that staffing plan is now the governor over hiring. One of the temporary measures we put in last spring is any purchase above $50,000, which we identified as the majority of our spend is in that category, had to be approved by a senior vice president. So we went to lift that. We determined that was actually a really good process, and so we've kept that process in place on more of a permanent status. We've instituted a monthly expenditure plan, so every unit on campus has to provide a monthly expenditure plan, and then we track spending against that. We did first quarter reviews with every unit to see if they were within their proposed spending plan, and almost without fail, all the units were in that and were within their budgeted expenditures. One of the units that failed that test was my own. We were slightly over budget in the first quarter. We identified the issue, and it turned out it was an expenditure that's going to be reimbursed, so it wasn't our fault, but we've identified it and we'll fix it. Some of the things we looked at as we went into fiscal 25, as you're all aware, we dramatically changed our merit aid structure. We just can't afford to continue to provide the type of merit aid that we have in the past. We delayed a number of capital projects. We're slowly working through those, and we centralized our capital process so that we can better prioritize and invest our capital dollars where they're most needed and are going to best benefit the university. We centralized a number of our operating functions, including IT, and we're slowly realizing some financial benefit from that, but mainly we did that to improve our security apparatus around IT. We paused our salary program for 2025. We are not doing an across-the-board salary program. We have put in place mechanisms for retention, for changes of duties, for promotion, that type of thing, where we can do some targeted salary increases. As President Crow noted, we're also looking at employment categories that are systematically underfunded that we need to raise that entire category up. And then we continue to invest in high growth areas with a strong ROI. One of the nice things about university budgeting versus state budgeting, for example, is the legislature sets a budget and then they go away. We don't go away, so we're still here. And so I can have a continuing dialogue with all of our budget units and what their ongoing needs are, their immediate needs are. And what we found is, we made the best decisions we could last spring. There's a number of unknowns as you go into the fall, and we continue to identify those friction points throughout the university, and then we address them as they come up. The provost and I and Garth, our budget director, have a standing meeting to look at issues that have been raised, and some we say, yes, we're gonna put a few more resources there. Others we say, no, not at this time. We've asked for a business case on each of those and how it's gonna sort out. So that's how we're managing things right now.
President Garamella?
Yeah, if I could, this isn't, I guess our situation isn't exactly related. The responses aren't just related to the state changes, the cuts. Obviously, last year and this year, we had a deficit. By the end of this year, our every intention is for us to zero out that deficit. It's important for the board to recognize and for everyone to hear me say that these kinds of things have a very challenging effect on faculty morale and on staff morale. If all we talk about is cuts and there are no raises, et cetera, this is not fun. It's happened for 2 years. I've asked the team, I'm going to try my best. We're going to try our best to have a raise for next year put in place, because really our faculty and staff are, we need them to not be constantly worried, right? And so, I'm pleased that despite the, significant doom and gloom reports in the news, that by the end of this fiscal year, I'm hoping that's behind us, and that we'll be talking about building and growing and supporting our faculty, et cetera. So we're making tough calls, but I think I just want us all to keep in mind that the people that are most affected are those that make the least amount of money, and we're at least keeping in mind that we need to do our best coming next year to give them something to look forward to.
Brad, are there other questions? Yeah, I saw that. Before I get to Regent Penley, Brad, were there other prompts that you?
There are plenty, but recognizing we're kind of late in the day.
Yeah.
The only other question that I would ask the universities is if, as we think about reporting, we think about these key metrics. We've talked about the pros and cons of all of these different pieces, but what are we missing? Like, is there another storyline or narrative or piece of data that any of the three of you see as useful to the board's understanding of where we are in this moment?
Just answering that question only, I just think it would be valuable to always remind the regents that as we approach $100 per resident of Arizona's investment in higher education, which will rank us 50th of all of the states, 1/8 of the investment in Wyoming, 1/3 of the investment in Texas on a per capita basis, that we constantly use the metrics of what are the people investing in the institution on a per capita basis, because here we've decided that we're going to invest a small amount, that's fine. And so then that also means that all of these other discussions then are partly a function of that. And so there are indicators of these investment levels that are very simple. Per capita investment in higher education by the state. That's it. It's just a simple number. It's approaching $100 now. And Arizona used to be in the 90th percentile in its investment on a per capita basis, and now it's in the 9th percentile.
Are there others that want to respond to Brad's? Regent Penley?
Thank you very much, Regent Goodyear. I want to return to what President Garamella said and to what John was addressing a moment ago. And I appreciate, President Garamella, you're raising the issue of the morale of the faculty and the need to raise that. I also, when I watched what happened here at the university before you became president, I felt really bad for the faculty. Faculty who, in many cases, I suspect didn't even know their departments were overspending. Faculty who were shocked at where the situation was. And I frankly wasn't surprised at the reaction when that failure of central communication was not in place. And so I've been very pleased to watch a much more serious budgeting process where we are monitoring budgets, and faculty and departments and colleges don't get surprised because that's not the way we ought to be treating a valuable resource like the faculty that we have on this campus. So I appreciate what you had to say. I guess, John, my question to you is, you've talked about the freeze that had been in place, the release of the freeze, the monitoring. Could you address the changes to human resources that really were essential to really get your arms around where we are, and the extent to which now there are liaisons between units on campus and central HR, such that things are a bit more orderly and surprises are minimal?
Thank you, Chair, Madam Chair, Regent Goodyear, Regent Penley, everybody else. Thank you again, and I want to echo President Garamella's note. The positive outlook here on campus is just tremendous, and that's one thing I've really learned here is there's a real power at the University of Arizona that starts with our faculty and our students, and is driven by our staff, and you know, the pride and unity of this institution. We're going to be fine. We had a little hiccup, but there's incredible financial strength here that is just coming back. You know, we're trying to govern it appropriately, but that engine is really powerful, and it's running, and we're going to get there. Centralizing HR was a key component of what we needed to do. There was both a lack of communication around HR and differing processes around campus. We also wanted to build out a professionalized HR staff on campus that had an opportunities to have a career in human resources through a centralized structure instead of being generalists throughout the university. I'm not going to pretend that has not been a difficult process with some hiccups in it. We are getting to a more steady state where we have embedded liaisons with the various departments. But as you bring those inconsistent processes into a centralized, consistent process, of course, there's differing opinions on which methodologies are best. We have just a terrific, very professional HR team that is out there working to get that done. But centralization processes take some time, and it can be difficult. The surprise, as you mentioned, goes both ways. We needed a much more enhanced reporting structure, both financially and through HR, and we have put that in place. I'm very pleased with where we're at on reporting. During our round, during the first quarter, we did some training on the updated reporting, and I got back over and over, this is the best level of reporting we've ever seen, and I think they're being used, those reports are being used, which we very much want. So thank you.
If I could just very briefly add, you know, whenever we try to put new systems in place, certainly in HR, it's not always going to be smooth, right? We'll make mistakes. There'll be unfortunate delays here and there, but I do want to sort of speak up for our HR team. They're doing their best. It's new, and we will continue to iterate to improve that. But, you know, just want to come back briefly to your point, Regent Penley, and that is, you know, when the state thinks about investing in the universities, they are investing in our people. And so I hope that that message, you know, we're one of the largest employers, the second largest or largest in Southern Arizona, and investing in, you know, the state appropriation does support the largest part of our budget, which is salaries and wages. And I think that's another thing we need to get across in terms of messaging. The last thing I'll say is, you know, the provost, Ron Marks, has been a great partner in this. It's critical that these things get done, not just in an HR shop or a finance shop, but that the provost, the CFO, myself, you know, all of us work together, and I think that's working really well right now. And I've repeatedly said that we will always try to tighten our belt more in the center than in the academic units, and so I hope people will see that come through in the coming months and years.
Thanks. John, it's great to see that the university's financial position is stabilized. Can you talk a little bit about the plan to bring days of cash on hand up to expected levels?
Thank you. Madam Chair, Regent Goodyear, Regent Stein. Good question, and the reason I struggle with that a little bit is we are talking about that right now and looking at what are the mechanisms we have. You know, there's really two ways to go about it. One, we right the ship, we start producing a positive cash flow into the university. There is pressure on the university to spend any type of positive cash flow, and so we'll continue to need to exercise fiscal discipline to ensure that we're allocating a portion of our new cash revenues into cash reserves. We've already started that process, have that built into our budget moving forward, but it's not sufficient. That would take us a decade plus at the rate we're going to restore cash reserves to the board's minimum standards. So just had an early conversation with the president this last week about some initial thoughts around but we need to do some more planning and thinking before we can get a better answer to the board.
And Regent Stein, I mean, there are ways of increasing cash on hand, but we don't want to put perverse things in place. And so this is going to be a longer term strategy, right? Because we're fixing a lot of things at the same time that the cash on hand has gone so low that it doesn't make us comfortable at all. We do need to get to the board. The board has a very reasonable set of numbers. 250 days, 280 days is not unusual at universities that are doing well. We're far from that, but we don't want to somehow sort of hit that number in unhealthy ways. And so we're thinking very carefully about it.
I agree, but I do also think that we need a plan. And so I would look forward to hearing what that plan is. And I guess let me just ask relatedly, does the fact that the days of cash on hand is what it is now, does that affect ability to bond and that sort of thing?
Regent. The answer to that is no. The rating agencies did put the university on negative watch. They did not lower our rating and negative outlook. And so is that going to cost us a couple of percentage points not percentage points, you know what I mean.
I do.
And our debt costs, yes, very, very, very minor. Our debt position is really, really strong right now. They're certainly watching us, the market's watching us, but we just did a debt refinancing, no trouble at all. Our access to the markets are fine. And I don't believe we would see a downgrade unless we saw another change in our financial outlook. The rating agencies have seen, we've seen stability and a more positive outlook, and as long as we continue on that path, we'll be fine from that perspective.
I'm hoping my buddy Michael will write me a big check as a buddy favor.
We don't use checks.
You take credit cards, don't you?
Zelle. We use
All right.
Bitcoin.
Brad, I think we need to close this out. So one thing, it was a year ago that, maybe a little more than a year ago, early November, where this meeting made an awful lot of news. For me, the takeaway from today's presentation from yourself and the three CFOs is that right now there isn't a whole lot of news. The universities continue to soldier on in the face of some difficult circumstances, including reduced support from the state. But in terms of there is no cause for a 5-alarm fire, and actually I would argue that the reaction to what happened last year was overdone, but there is no equivalent to what happened last year. Given the difficulty of what the universities face, I mean, having to design a budget in June when they don't even know enrollment until well into the fall, it's a difficult job. So the notion that things are off by 1% or 2% in one direction or the other, this is not particularly newsworthy. So with that, this was not an action item. Thank you all for the updates. We will receive another update in February to discuss financial health based on key metrics and data, update mid-year financial projections, and to discuss preliminary fiscal year 26 planning assumptions. So with that said, that concludes the UGO portion of the meeting, Chair Mata,
Yeah.
and I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Regent Goodyear. So our next item is the report of the November 7, 2024 Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting. Regent Pacheco, as committee chair, would you please present this item?
Thank you very much, Chair Mata. The following report is on our last Strategic Planning and Initiatives Committee meeting, our November meeting specifically. The committee invited a panel of university leaders to discuss current efforts, trends, and potential opportunities they see in their work at the interface between university research and military and defense partners. There was a wide range of discussion items on how the university's existing research strengths form a foundation for supporting military, defense, national security, et cetera, and really emphasizing the role of consistent, successful engagement in building stronger and further reaching collaborations, not just within their own institutions, but with one another across the states and obviously in other states and countries. Each university have recent successes and reflected on the opportunities to position shared infrastructure and competencies to attract even more research opportunities into the system, not only benefiting our university system, but the state as a whole. And I'm very much looking forward to the next Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting. And I do want to thank Chair Mata specifically, because this really was a subject that she has a lot of passion around, and I think it was brought together really beautifully. So thank you for your guidance and in support in getting all of that coordinated. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Regent Pacheco. So any questions, comments? Hear none and seeing none. Here, the next item is the Regent's report, student report. Regent Sagarosa and Fisher, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Mata. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of the board's time, and to the audience for lending an open ear. We'll be keeping the report today short and sweet, as though we have exciting information to share. We also want to be mindful of everyone's time. Regent Fisher and I have made progress in our revamped student well-being work group, and we've been collaborating with faculty and staff at our 3 universities specializing in the mental health needs of students, as well as members of our board staff, such as Roxanne Murphy, to flesh out the scope and format of our listening sessions. As I tackled the questions we would be asking during our sessions, Regent Fisher has done excellent work coordinating with our student governments in order to have our first session. With that said, I'd like to have her speak more on this matter.
Thank you, Regent Zaragoza. Last board meeting, we both spoke about our plans to hold these student mental health listening sessions with the goal to gather as much qualitative data as we can on the mental state of students on campuses across the 3 universities. Recently, I've had the honor to work with the Associated Students of the University of Arizona to plan out our first mental health listening session for tomorrow afternoon. Our hope is that we will be able to hear from as many students as possible to start our conversations while David and I are both here, as well as get a feel for how we can improve these listening sessions in the future. As, again, we mentioned during the last board meeting, the data that is collected in the coming months across all 3 universities will be used to advise efforts to implement actual change across our universities. And I will pass it back to Regent Zaragoza.
Thank you, Regent Fisher. With that, we stand for any questions the university presidents or the rest of the board might have for us.
Any questions for our Regent students? Thank you. Thank you. We truly appreciate the insight and of our Regent Zaragoza and Regent Fisher and the hard work, especially because you are students, still continue to be part of the process, and we appreciate all the effort, to let us know what is happening, especially in that subject. Okay, so our final item is the report from the Arizona Faculty's Council. Professor Ellis, please proceed.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair Mata and Regents. The AFC is very grateful to Chair Mata and all board members for your response to our September report on the issue of doxing. Your interest and engagement with this issue is of great importance to the faculty at all 3 universities, is very much appreciated, and we look forward to further updates in February. Your support allows us to pursue the truths of our disciplines and to serve our students. At the University Government and Operations Committee meeting on November 11th, updates on the General Education Critical Thinking Assessment were presented. At that time, Regent Penley advocated for the universities to coordinate their assessment in order to sample equivalent students, resulting in comparable results. Each university is unique, and that must be both maintained and celebrated. But if we are to demonstrate our value to the state, we must provide equivalent data. We understand this first assessment cycle represents early efforts to gauge the effectiveness of programs newly installed. Although it is important to make comparisons between the three universities, our missions and students' bodies differ, and thus our assessment scores will not be the same. It is important that this be framed clearly so that no outside reader of this information assumes that these reports represent a complete measure of how each university is doing in comparison with the others. It is essential that the assessments are designed and read as measuring the effectiveness of the general studies courses, and that they demonstrate how well the courses improve student skills. For this reason, we must include an evaluation of courses at multiple levels: introductory freshman courses, 200 level, and senior capstone courses. The AFC calls on all three universities to coordinate assessment and sampling efforts to ensure that all three universities are sampling equivalent students by year in school and across colleges, capturing the breadth of types of students. This will ensure that we can showcase the educational value of all three universities and what students learn and how they grow as a result of general education programs. We are grateful for your ongoing support for the faculty, staff, and students in Arizona, and your recognition of our central role at this mission-critical time in the future of our state. At the committee meeting in November, you discussed at length the attainment challenges in this state. Higher education is vital to the success of Arizona, and we need to find more and better ways to explain this to students, starting in grade school and their families. Each university has made efforts towards this end, as has the board, but the data on university attendance by Arizona high schools, as we all know, demonstrates how much more work there is still to do. We urge the board to work with all three universities to develop an inclusive and powerful strategy for changing the current limited and inadequate connections we have with Arizona's K-12 and community college systems. We do thank the board, through the leadership of Regent Pacheco, for stating that the board and universities must engage across all levels of education to improve attainment in Arizona. We all recognize that the future success and prosperity of the state depends on this. Education is a common good, and we must all work together to demonstrate our value to the people of this state. We wish to thank the board, through the leadership of Regent Duval, for your ongoing advocacy for the universities, specifically with regard to funding and the necessity of increasing state support. Finally, the AFC finds significant strength in our diversity, and we are better able to understand our individual and collective potential and the challenges we face through our collaboration as we serve our universities, the board, and the state. To that end, we invite you to join us in our classrooms and laboratories and at our Senate meetings so you can experience with us the generative and cultural strengths we offer. Please expect invitations in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ellis. This concludes the public session, and I have a few announcements before we adjourn. For those attending tonight's reception, it is at the Applied Research Building, Level 2. Card service will be available at the U of A Student Union Circle beginning at 5:15. Friday's breakfast scheduled at 7:45 at the Grand Challenges Research Building, Level 1. Card service will be available beginning at 7:30 from the Marriott Hotel. And following the breakfast, the board is scheduled to reconvene in executive session at 9 a.m. in Julie Modine Woodrow Boardroom in Old Main, reviews of assignments with Enterprise Executive Committee and President Garimella. I would like to thank President Garimella and his staff again, Executive Director Sampson, and the board staff for their work on this meeting. The board is now in recess. Thank you very much.